Hello, everyone, and welcome to From the Ground Up podcast. Thank you so much for being here and for hanging out on another Monday. And if you guys want to check out, we do have some ice pods available on the website, Theportcitypythons.com, as well as some reptile supplies. We just sent out a bunch of ISO straight, the ISO pod substrate this morning, as well as some cocoa chip and some cocoa fiber and aspen bedding, and we have all that stuff, so please go check it out, as well as some drainage layers and different things for bioactive. So yeah, other than that, like I said before, like I've said every episode for the last 3 weeks, week 3 of quarantine. I don't know if this is episode 3 or 4 of isolation, but it's getting weird. I don't know if I'm used to this yet. I don't love it, but it is breeding season, and I have paired up a bunch of animals, so I'm super excited about that. But I'll probably get into that later, and I'll tell you guys and update you that at a later date. So today's guest, he works with a bunch of gecko species as well as a lot of North American colubrids. His name is Kris Painschab of Badlands Herpetoculture. Kris, welcome to the podcast.
What's up, man? How you doing?
I'm doing good. I've seen you around forever. So what exactly are you into as far as, I said, geckos and North American colubrids, but be a little bit more specific?
For sure. So I work with a lot of gargoyle geckos and leeches. Actually, not too much leeches. I have a couple. So New Caledonian geckos. I am a animal hopper sometimes, so I try to work with as many different species as I can. I love the Noah's Ark feeling. So I've worked with a lot of eublepharid, which are Gorgoniosaurus genus. I've only worked with the Hyanensis on those, but Coleonyx. I've worked with Mitratus, Vargas, brevis. Worked with a bunch of Phelsuma in the past. But now kind of working on collecting and hopefully at some point breeding on and off North American colubrids as far as the entire genus of Pitiophis, and with the few exceptions, we'll get there. And North American rat snakes, man, I love all of them. So yeah, that's kind of the scope right now. What I'm mostly, if you were asking me what I'm breeding right now, corn snakes, love corn snakes. Dude, I've got a handful of little projects going with them, some bull snakes and some San Diego gophers. That's my snake breeding season right now. And then I've got 2 sets of Lychees and 4 trios, on and off, mixing in some females here and there of gargoyles, Rhacodactylus auriculatus.
Nice. So can you give me a little bit of a translation on some of those species that you said in the beginning?
So the Coleonyx genus is your banded geckos. Oh, and I do have still paired. I have a pair of Coleonyx mitratus, which is the Central American banded geckos. So eublepharids are the family that you will find Eublepharis macularis in. They're the guys with eyelids.
Leopard geckos, right?
Leopard geckos, yeah.
There you go.
So all of the eyelid geckos, and you're going to have to excuse me. There is a ton of them. Cat eye geckos, I think, are in there. So your Coleonyx, your Variegatus is your West Coast variants of the desert species of banded geckos, and then your brevis is your Texas banded geckos. All of them are really neat, really diverse group. They all look totally different. There's subspecies in some of them. They have wicked cool, neat little patterns. But yeah, and they all have different care because they're all from different parts of North America, kind of included down into Mexico, Central America. And then your Gorgoniosaurus is your Hainan Island Chinese cave geckos. So those are a really neat species, super easy. I don't have them anymore. I had a group of 2.5 or something like that for years. And a buddy of mine is taking care of those. And I took some of his snakes, kind of just keeping parameters specific, in a reptile room, as you know, trying to keep a specific temperatures and humidities can be a challenge sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. And what got you all started? Where'd you start?
Oh man, I think I got that same answer as every kid. Dinosaurs. I love dinosaurs. I first and foremost, I'll absolutely say I'm a very lucky person. My parents were very understanding of the things that I liked and I wanted to do. no snakes in the house. But when I think I got some like those little fire belly newts when I was a kid. And then I was in Boy Scouts. So I went from Webelos all the way to Eagle Scout. I stayed at Scouts until I couldn't. So I was always out flipping rocks, catching snakes, catching lizards. But when I was 14, I had a handful of, Pac-Man frogs or whatever. And I was obsessed with day geckos. In fact, I have a book. I still have the book. It's the old pink Phelsuma book, if anybody listening has ever heard of it. And I wanted day geckos. I wanted day geckos more than anything on this earth. And my dad happened to work with a guy that was a reptile guy. I mean, he was like the creepy tattoo reptile guy. I got a snake around my neck when I'm meeting girls. And he knew an importer and got me a pair of gold dust day geckos. And so I set those up, as well as a 14-year-old could. And I ended up breeding them for years. I had a breeding pair of gold dust day geckos for like 3 years, which for wild caught it's a pretty good time for a lizard that probably has only lived 6-7 years maybe. They're high metabolism, small animal, which I'm sure I'll apologize. I'm sure they go like 15 years in somebody's collection. But I mean, on your average wild caught geckos, you're probably with something that's small, high metabolism. You're probably not looking at having them for a long time. But kind of through that avenue, there was a local pet store, a real small pet store, and I met a guy. His name's Carl Vargas. He owns and operates South Tex Gex. If anybody listening is into geckos, they know about the bacon line, the Vargas granite line Lychees. Well, at a young age, I met this guy, and he's an angel, man. He's a godsend when it comes to this hobby, and he taught me so much of what I know. And then working with him, I was breeding leopard geckos, and me and him were breeding bearded dragons. And I mean, we were, through his mind, I learned so much. And he was my Mr. Miyagi for many years, and he still is. We're still extremely close friends. That was 20 years ago, so I'm 35. And so just kind of working with geckos. So we kind of transitioned to leopard geckos, bearded dragons. When I finally moved out, I was starting to get into crested geckos, which was kind of cool because it was like 2005. Nobody had them. Nobody had even seen them. And me and him worked with crested geckos. And then, man, it was all over. I got my first snake. I got a little gray banded king snake. It was a little alternative phase. No locality back then. Nobody was really worried about the localities. And that just broke me. And for the longest time, I loved working with snakes, but not necessarily breeding snakes. There's an extra level when it goes to breeding snakes based off of something that you can keep paired up year round. You kind of, with geckos, you kind of click those parameters and they're good. And then with snakes, you've got a little multifaceted things you got to do with them to get them just right. But yeah, that was it, man. Always rock flipping, catching bull snake. I caught bull snakes here in Corpus when I was 14, 15 years old. I caught bull snakes up in Minnesota when I was 14, 15. That was where my family was from, so kind of drew me into that species. But yeah, in a roundup, I'm sure I'm missing out some things. Again, like I said, I'm so lucky to have had mentors in my life. My parents weren't really like reptile people at all, but they loved the fact that I was passionate about something. And same thing, having somebody guiding me like Carl in my life really, really was special.
So did you legitimately keep all throughout, all from that time of like 15 years old or so to now?
There has been one time in my life, and it was 6 months long, that I didn't have a reptile in my possession. That was when me and my, at the time, girlfriend, who's my now wife, we moved into a specific apartment complex, and they wouldn't allow snakes. So going through college, I just kept snakes. Stopped breeding lizards. I was in college on and off. I got kicked out of a college. I mean, I did all kinds of kid shit. Everything that a boy in his 20s wanted to do. And so I always just kept snakes. I remember being in my apartment and us having like 20-something snakes in my room. And we had pairs. And I say my brother's always been on this with me. He's like a silent partner in everything I do. We had Dumerils boas pairs. I had a pair of Hog Island boas. We had rainbow boas. And we never mean, we had these snakes for years, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, and we just never paired them up. I guess, we never thought, we could actually breed these things. We just go to a reptile show, like, oh man, this is cool. And then come find out, we'll get into this a little bit later, all of those species are illegal in my city. Totally didn't know. But yeah, no, I had a pair of gray bandeds. Oh, I gave them to a buddy to try and breed them. I had them for almost 10 years. Again, no locality. It was like an alternative phase and a Blair's phase, which I don't even know if that's what they're called anymore. I had those even when my daughter was born. Even before my daughter was born, I was working with the Gargoyles and breeding cresteds. And so, yeah, I've kind of always just had something. It didn't really come to fruition until wanting to make something more out of it, a little bit more collection-based and business-based. You have to market and generate profit somehow. You know what I mean? You've got to bring in some kind of income if you want to have 150 animals. Until about 5 years ago, and that's when I really got heavy into the gargoyle geckos. And we had built the house that I'm in now. And I had kind of designed this room that I'm in. It's not the biggest room, but it's got, ample closet space, outlets everywhere. You can see the sun coming through. I wanted the windows 7 foot tall. I wanted it nice, big. I wanted everything to be able to get natural sunlight, but I also wanted to be able to block that out. So it's on the west side of the house. So when the sun's going down, I get ample light in here, but in the mornings, if I want to keep, anyways, so that was kind of a rambler, man. I already told you.
No, man, you're perfectly fine. So when you set up that room, I mean, is it all in one room with all those species?
Yes. So the idea was to be able to have a room with a lot of ventilation. So I've got 2 AC vents in here. I got a nice big ceiling fan, and it's got 10-foot ceilings in here, which actually helps. So a lot of the heat that's generated, I do have heat on all of my snakes. It rises. Well, I mean, I can kind of, so this, I don't know if this is 6 or so feet. It goes up way up there. So sorry, I got some nerd posters. That's the real deal.
Good.
So high ceilings help with heat extrapolation. I'll do that again. Oh.
Yeah, no, I was like, I know there's a button for this that I could show this better. So
yeah. So moving the heat up high, that way nothing's staying outside the parameters where I want it. I wanted this room to specifically fluctuate temperatures. I do believe that a temperature gradient between day and night is important for all animals. I am. That's one of the things I'm like a firm believer of. I want this room to drop 3 degrees at night, 4 degrees at night. Not something huge, not a huge swing. But I also want this room during the winter to get a little cooler. So during the winter, I might see 68, 70 ambient. But during the summer, I might have days. I mean, on a hot day, South Texas. So we got 110, 105 sometimes for weeks on end. If it gets really hot, this room could see, especially being on the west side, maybe 80 degrees. At that, if I start seeing constant 80, 82 degrees, I'm turning the vents open and pushing a lot of air through here so it doesn't get too warm. But if the general temperature in this room is 75 to 78 degrees, which is good, especially for a lot of the species I keep. And I try to find species that kind of fit in that parameter. And then, on all the North America colubrids, as nice hot spot, about 82 degrees. But also now I don't have this huge power output where I'm worried about 95 degree hot spots or, I don't like heat lamps. Heat lamps are like the number one thing I don't like using just from bad experiences in the past. Of course, I got one like hanging on a wall over here. Just bad experiences in the past. Not that they're a bad product. Some people have great luck with them. But I'd rather use like a radiant heat panel or heat tape or heat cord, something with a thermostat on it. That's going to be, I got 12 thermostats in this room. I'm real. I got like some of my thermostats and some of my animals are like backed up by thermostats. Dude, I'm real nervous about anything like that.
Well, that's not a bad thing. And I see those Lychees behind you. It looks like they have bulbs on them. Are they?
Those are actually no. Those are puck lights from Amazon, and they just click on and off. And I just do that because they look nice.
So they're not generally on all day.
No, not at all. Now the window, I keep the window kind of cracked so they get about 4 or 5 hours of actual light in here. It's gonna be a really hot day, and I'm worried about temperatures. I'm gonna close it. been a little rainy and a little muggy, but that's not a bad thing. These reptiles like to have some barometric pressure changes and kind of see an overcast day. Depends on the species. Some of them probably don't like it. Bull snakes don't like it. Any of the Pitiophis are like not about storms, not about cooler random temperatures, not about barometric pressure changes. So kind of just depends. But yeah, these are just for like looking good on podcast, man.
No, yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, because the first thing I said was look at those great enclosures. Lately, we've had guests that have a much better background than me, so
that looks cool though. I mean, I was like, if I turn it one way, you'll see like a window and some racks. The other way is some racks and some drawers. Yeah, this is the only part that's like really pretty. Where some of the species I'm working with, we're going to be doing some display enclosures with. Some of the species I work with don't do good with display enclosures, or at least that I've kind of tried or worked with. So that's kind of just depends.
So are you pairing geckos right now?
Yes. So I usually, and as far as the gecko breeding goes, the gargoyle geckos I keep in trios. I separate my males a couple months out of the year, keep the females together. I generally see most of my aggression out of the females towards the male or towards the other females. They're a little territorial. I've heard a lot of different things. Excuse me. I've heard a lot of different things about which are more aggressive, males or females. For me, that's just what it is here. I also produce about 98% females. So I've heard on the East Coast, people get more males. On the West Coast, people get more females. I'm right in the middle. There's a lot of weird things with gargoyle geckos. They're a little more intricate, a little more cryptic than most people give them credit for sometimes. But yeah, right now we have gargoyle geckos. I have 3 trios right now. In fact, I introduced a female over here. So there's actually a 1 male and 3 females in one of these enclosures. And then I do separate certain females. I have a couple females I'm not breeding this year just because I don't want to produce too many babies. Sometimes it's hard to sell gargoyle geckos. Sometimes it's not. Depends on the market. Right now with the current climate, with the virus going around, a worldwide pandemic, geckos aren't really flying off the shelves. I don't need to produce 130 geckos this year. Not for my sanity, not for my bank account. Also, sometimes these things sell for $1,000, and it's really hard to sell. That's not a you gotta try to market something like that or take it to a show for a while. All the shows are canceled. The big shows, Tinley, stuff like that, which I wouldn't be vending anyways, but might have friends going. Stuff like that. It's a thought. I think a lot of people should know this, and I'm sure you know this. Every animal you produce, plan on keeping. If you can't take care of that animal the rest of its life, you don't need to hatch that baby out. I have a gargoyle that was born with a scar in its eye. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful baby, but its eye's messed up. I don't know how it happened. Nobody knows how it happened, but that's a pet for life. I mean, not gonna use it in any breeding programs. Nothing out of that line's ever shown anything like that. But I've got to be prepared to keep the animal for the rest of its life. I had a parthogenic egg hatch. I don't even, some people really are adamant about incubating parthogenic eggs. I decided to try it out. It hatched. Now I have a year and 2-month-old, maybe a 14-month-old gecko that's maybe the size of a 3-month-old gecko. It's just like, but it's surviving, it's eating, it's doing its thing. It's doing gecko-y stuff, but it's not. It's weird, man. But I had to plan on the second you incubate that egg, the second you pair that, whether it's snakes, geckos, whatever it is, you might have that. You might not be able to wholesale it. You might not be able to find it at a show. What are you going to do? Go let them go in your backyard? That's not fair. That's you're in it for the wrong purpose if the only idea is to make money. So
absolutely. Now let's go, I guess, a little bit more specific as far as gargoyle geckos. I mean, it seems like there's a whole bunch of different lineage information and different looks to them. I don't really know much about it. So kind of what were you into at first, and kind of how did you build your collection? Like, what were you looking for?
So at first, when I first started with gargoyle geckos, in my mind, it was like anything. Let me just get anything, pair them together. I'm gonna have baby gargoyles. They're the best. And that works. if you get a pair of gargoyle geckos, I suggest trios. It minimizes territorial issues. I suggest introducing them all at the same time, letting females establish. You're not going to get a bunch of eggs. They're not like crested geckos. They don't lay eggs every 30 days. I see maybe a pair of eggs every 60 days. Females will start dipping cycles. So you might get a pair of eggs in 120 days, you know? Sorry, some kid just fell outside skateboarding. Sorry. So yeah, you're gonna, you know, you're not gonna produce a ton. But at first I was like, then I started kind of getting my hands on, and I suggest anybody that's really interested in building a collection or building into where they can sell animals for decent amounts of money is you want to spend your money on, first and foremost, what turns you on, right? Like, because if you're not producing things that you want to see, you're not going to enjoy it. You're gonna burn out. You cannot burn out in this hobby because, like I said, you can get 400 corn snakes, and they're all going to be, you know, something you're just not about. And what are you going to do when you burn out? You can't. You're going to end up wholesaling. You're going to financially, you're going to ruin yourself. You are never going to recover from that financially. And then, dude, you know, I'm going to make all the
good reference,
all the Joe references. But yeah, you're not. But but your heart's going to be gone. You're going to lose your tie to it, your emotion to it. So I found I really liked the red stripe stuff. Obviously, I have bacon line stuff. Again, I'm going to harken back on Carl Vargas. And, you know, I have a handful of his bacon line stuff. It is the best of the best. It is the reddest geckos out there. It's an investment to get into. You're not going to sell any of the babies. I hate selling these things. I hate it. I want to keep them all. But what I decided to do in all of my groups, I have a group of black and whites that I pair up. I have a group of yellows that I actually have disassembled right now. They did a lot of work last year, and I just don't need to overbreed them either. That's another thing. Take care of your animals. I want these things to live for 40 years or whatever. And then I have a group of reticulateds, one of these directions, with some blotched and super blotched stuff. I got some Phantomized stuff. But yeah, mostly what I'm going to be, you know, if somebody's looking at gargoyles and what am I focusing on, it's gonna be a lot of reticulated and blotched stuff and mostly red stuff. I work a lot with the red stripe. Man, dude, you can't beat a gecko. His insane red back, man. It's just, they're mind blowing.
I don't know much about like the value of a gecko, but what is a bacon line gecko compared to, you know, a normal gargoyle gecko?
Well, I don't sell my geckos named bacon line because even though I have bacon line stuff from Carl, I feel like if you have a line of animals, unless you are the original originator of that line, now you just have your red geckos. Now, if I sell a gecko, I sell it with the lineage. You know, some of it I can even go back to grandparent pictures. So in that sense, it is not my line of geckos to call bacon line. Now, I know that bacon line stuff from Carl is usually, I think you'll get a lower end for about 1,500, and I know they go up over shit. Yeah, they'll be over $3,000, man.
I didn't know that.
And if you know, and I won't answer for Carl. You should. Hey, I'm honest. He's an amazing person. He'd love to talk to you about it. I know his stuff flies off the shelf. You can't. He doesn't let go of a lot, and when he does, it's tough to get a hold of him. But like, so if I have a really nice full red stripe, they're 500 to 1,000. You know, some lower end stuff's in the 200-300 range. Another thing is it depends on the size. These things they go through a bit of an onogenic change. So you'll see their yellows and oranges kind of mature into deep reds. You know, you keep something, a mature gargoyle is 2 to 3 years old. They're slower. I don't do a lot of bug protein. I do bug protein in my diets. I do hand feed dubias, but I don't like crickets. I don't really like mealworms. I don't like any of these jumpy stuff around my house. I got a 3-year-old. She's crazy enough. So I do a lot of the mixed diets. You know, pick your mixed diet, right? I'm not gonna say which one's the best. You know, there's some wonderful companies doing some extensive research to get some of the best stuff on the market. And, you know, so if I hold back a gecko, it's 3 years out. till I'm going to breed it. I want to see my females 50 grams, 45 grams. I want to have big, healthy females give me big, healthy eggs. When a $1,000 or $1,500 gecko crashes and you're digging it out of its cage and digging a hole in the backyard, and tears feel real good. So
damn,
don't do that. Invest as much emotionally into these animals as you do financially. You have to love them. You have to want to take care of them. They cannot just be, I'm going to buy this $2,000 gecko. I'm going to pair with this $2,000 gecko. In 2 years, it's going to poop out $2,000 babies. I mean, maybe not. They're polygenic. You might get $100 babies. What was the point in getting those if you didn't want them in the first place, just to try to, create a project that's going to make money? I mean, this. Corn snakes are probably one of my favorite snakes. They're not my favorite, but they're real close to my favorites. And I know financially there's not a huge, unless you're working with some of the crazy scale of stuff, some of the palmetto stuff.
No matter what, yeah. I mean, you can't do it at a scale that sustains itself and make money, like good money, really. Unless you're producing 10,000 of them, But.
Yeah, you got to be into it for the love. And that's the thing. Like, let's say a nice corn snake goes for $100, $200. How much of your time did you put into that one baby? Like, let's say you make, average, I don't know what average person makes, call it $20 an hour, $25 an hour, whatever. How many hours of feeding did you go into that baby? How many mouse tails did you shove down its throat because it didn't want to eat? It has to be an emotional investment before it's a financial investment. And honestly, you're not going to get into this and make money. You may be lucky enough to come out on top. You might have a good year. You might have. I had a couple babies last year that I did sell for $1,000. I felt really good about it. But the years of dedication I went into getting to that point are not easily found, and none of it was done. None of it was overnight. It took a lot of maturation of these animals. You can buy adult animals. I think the answer on some people sell breeders that are in great shape, 3 or 4 years old. You'll have the best luck in the world. Some people will sell you, a 14-year-old gecko that is burnt out, been bred every year, and you might spend $1,000 on that animal too. You don't. It's got to be that emotional tie first before it's anything else.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I mean, when people go for that shortcut and get all adult animals, you got to be really careful. You could really be setting yourself up for. Not only do you fail like the first time, but you're talking consecutively. You try to make those animals go and go and go, and you waste a lot of your time. And even if you don't have babies that are healthy too, I mean, it's a whole mess. So it's important to check out where you're getting your animals from.
Absolutely, it's trust, and that's the other thing. Trust. When you're buying an animal, whether it's a corn snake, whether it's a gecko, whether it's a high-end colubrid, there's some really amazing rare special stuff. King cobra. Know your source. Know where you're getting these animals from. Do yourself a little due diligence that you didn't just grab the first one off the shelf or the first one you saw at the show. Talk to the person that's selling it. If they don't want to talk to you, maybe that's not the animal for you. If somebody's willing to do their work on their side as a seller, then you get to inform yourself better as a buyer. I've sold an adult snake before. At my table, I had a beautiful pair of Chesapeake Bay Eastern King snakes. I'm going to talk about all my failures because no success is built without failure. So beautiful. I raised them up. They were gorgeous. Just the prettiest jewel yellow in between the black chunks on their back. My brumation chamber, because I'm in the southern pit of hell, is a wine cooler, and it works great. So I brumate my snakes in a wine cooler, and pulled it out. Man, I paired them together, and these snakes were ready to go, man. And these two boys fought. Yeah. So I got to see what male-on-male combat looks like in probably the most aggressive snake on the planet. So that was pretty cool, man. But yeah, so I sold an adult male snake, sold it at my table. People came up, wanted to ask a million questions. Some people come up and just, hey, how much for that one? Whatever. But I wanted to relay the idea. this snake is this old. This is why I'm selling. You know, if do a little due diligence on your side, and you'll it's buyer protection, it's seller protection. Know what you're buying, know what you're selling. Be honest about it. You know, I mean, I was talking about this like I sell a lot of animals, man. I don't sell a lot. I don't sell a lot of stuff. I hold back a lot of geckos. I'm notorious for giving friends geckos. I'm always like, hey man, you need to get on this. These are badass. Here, take this one. And so I don't like the business side of it, but I try to be as honest and savvy as I can be. And that's one thing I guess we'll eventually get into with the snakes. I plan on breeding a lot of my snakes, but at the same time, I'm also building a collection. It's a collection of animals I want around me that I get to experience. So
talking a little bit about selling the snakes, do you do any shows locally?
I do. So we started this year. Bad year to start. Working with Sean Gray over at the Herp shows. He's an angel, man. He's a sweetheart. Him and Lori do such a great job. You've had him on your show. He's a beast, man. The Herp shows are so well organized, and they care so much for their vendors. So me and my brother, and like I said, he's kind of the other half. We did a table this year, and man, we almost sold out. It was best feeling in the world, and you know. I have sold my animals through other vendors before, but actually getting out there and meeting people and you know, kissing babies and shaking hands, it's a special feeling. You know, it's really neat after all these years of being on the other side of the table, you know, being back behind the booth and you know, I'm one of those guys that's like, I bring some adult animals. I want the kids to hold gargoyle and geckos, and you know, you pull out a crested gecko or something, and some kid touches it for free. Woo! Mom and dad come over. You know, you got the corn snakes. Somebody sees these brilliant, bright, candy cane looking animals, and it's just the best feeling. It's whether you sell that $1,000 gecko or you sell the $15 gecko, it's such a good you build that momentary relationship with somebody. You put a smile on a kid's face for the first time. It's like that smile we got, you know. It's a good thing.
I feel like people really miss out on that experience because a lot of times people aren't people persons. Or people.
Yeah.
I understand, and I'm not as much either, but like it's nice that when you have corn snakes or when you have geckos, or I don't 100% understand why someone doesn't want to talk to the people across the table and doesn't want to show them their animals and get like a kid excited. I don't understand it. I'm a very social person. Obviously, I kind of rant a lot. But not everybody is. But if you can be on that side of the table and you find that equal tie to somebody, whether it's a child, whether it's an adult, whether it's your superior, whether it's your peer, that little tie that brings you to them will open up that social avenue. And yeah, some people are, you know, some people really shouldn't be vending shows, man. You just get to put them online, put them on Morph Market, send them an email telling you they ain't got no picture of the adults or something. I don't know, do your thing, but. Oh, they don't want to answer emails either. They don't want to sell at shows or answer emails.
That's, you know, I could go, man, Joe, we talked for 2 hours about customer service and how, look, it's, I don't know, especially like, I'm like a lineage guy with geckos, and I am the first person in the world that's going to tell you if I don't have that information. But I'm going to tell you where I bought it. You know, I write everything down. But man, so just be nice to people. I'm not going to rant too far on it, man.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. It's hard sometimes because like a lot of people get in touch with you, and I understand, and especially some people can be pretty low as far as what you got, what snake you got. You got snake for sale, like, and don't speak in complete sentence. I try my best to not hold it against them, but sometimes just like I don't know.
I think my favorite thing in all of this is, say you post 3 or 4 animals online, you know, whatever avenue it is, Facebook, whatever, you know, Mark Zuckerberg's gonna come shut us down. But you say you post 4 geckos, you know, you post the weight, post a little, you know, a little lineage information. You get a message from somebody that just says how much. Oh man, you tell me, make an offer. What are you talking about? You know, it's a two-sided conversation, but as long as we do our best to kind of help people along, I think it gets you a better reputation. And you know, I in the past I've harped on about reputation. You don't you don't get to build your reputation. Other people get to do it for you. Your interactions with people, the animals you produce or animals you don't produce, maybe the animals you own, the animals you care for. You don't have to breed these animals. You can enjoy every single animal that you ever see in herpetoculture without pairing it up. And in fact, I'll get on this later. If you really, really want to kill an animal, I suggest breeding it. That is the best way to do it. Yeah, it has happened. I've spent a lot of money on dead geckos. It's part of it. A lot of money. I lost a snake recently. It's I'll tell that story in a little bit, but yeah, man, it's I don't know. I don't really know. I'm sorry, I'm ranting.
No, you're like, hey, it's really nice. I've kept this gecko really good. What I should do is put a male in there and have it hang on to its neck, and then potentially fight each other. That should probably work out good.
I at one point, it was about 3 years ago, I had a pair or a trio of every. I'm sorry, I'm gonna say every New Caledonian gecko. Somebody's gonna like message me later and be like, "You did not talk about the Urodactyloides auriculatus." But I had all the main ones. I had the Chihuahuas, Cresteds, Lychees. I did not have any of the Rhacodactylus, Tarachiorhynchus, and Trachiocephalus. That's
how dare you?
I know, live bearing, $4,000 geckos. My bad. I had Corlophus serracinorum. And it was really neat because that was kind of when I was really getting big into gargoyles. In my serracinorum, I had a stellar, white collar. The coral, I don't even know the common name for Corlophus serracinorum. They're kind of like a brown turd-looking crested gecko without the crest. They're a little bigger. They have an extremely prehensile tail. And this female, dude, I got the best one. And I bought it from the biggest name in the hobby. And I did buy it as an adult, and I was, $800. It was a real expensive animal. And and so I paired her up with a real pretty male, real chocolate male I had. And months went by, and I seen little marks on her neck. She was breeding. Finally, she had eggs. So a little flashlight you put on the back pelvis, you can kind of see eggs through their stomach. It's a good way to see how gravid a female is in some of these gecko species. And man, I remember one night she was digging down her lay box, and I was just so proud. I was like, oh, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna breed these guys. It's really neat. Just another species to work on. Maybe 10 or 15 species of geckos. This was like another one. And came in the next morning, she was in that lay box dead with 2 infertile eggs pushed out of her. And then what do you do? You send her to that great ice chest in the sky and you move on. I ended up giving that male to Carl Vargas, a close friend of mine, and he's working with them, and he's got babies on the way. He's got a bunch of eggs. It's that is part of this hobby. You'll find it with Leeches. My boy Shrek, and I might have to get him out later because he's sweet. They fight. They get in these altercations. It's usually because of breeding. Maybe it's cage size. Maybe it's territorial disputes. But they tear each other up. Now Shrek, he lost both parts of his inner cheek, which he's have healed up. He's missing toes. The female was missing a tail. I have to show you pictures. I don't try to post that too much online. These things get in fights. Sometimes you can hear it, you're getting there fast enough to break them up. But when you pair up Leeches, and I'm not going to rant on for a long time about Leeches. They're a very special species, and then they're really, really, really special to keep. In fact, I highly suggest anybody looking for a single animal to raise and to have for a long time. They're known to live over 40 years. Extremely easy to keep. But breeding them, when you're pairing them up, you actually probably want to stay up with them the night. They're crepuscular, so you want to kind of pair them up as the sun's going down, usually in a neutral zone. Kind of put them into a new cage. You don't want them smelling too much of each other's stuff. And wait. They're going to find each other, and you're going to hear some neat noises. They chirp, they bark. They're very vocal. Some barks are good, some chirps bad. Sometimes you have an aggressive male. Sometimes you have a female that just completely doesn't want any part of it. Sometimes you wake up to a dead gecko, man. It's a dangerous thing to do with animals.
And now there's some type of compatibility that needs to happen with Leeches, right? Is it true that they can actually pair?
Yes.
People use the term pair for life, I guess, but
yeah, they bond. It's like a natural bonding. They do bond in pairs. They to some extent Not like Chihuahua. Chihuahua can bond in pairs, but they can also bond in trios. They protect their eggs really, which is really neat. Leeches do to some extent. I believe they've been seen in the wild actually watching over their eggs, looking for predators. But I do believe that some of them pair for life. There's I think there's still research that needs to be done as to whether the specific locales are different subspecies, specifically the insular animals and the GT animals, the main Grand Terror animals, are so different and so distant from each other that they seem, at one point, I believe they were subspecies of each other. But yeah, so when these animals pair, they bond. They don't always stay well bonded. You don't want them in too big of an enclosure because they'll create separation from each other and have their own little territories. So that's one thing with leeches that kind of blows people away is, I got these like 18 by 18 by 24 Exoterras, great product, sturdy product. Unless you have like GTs, which are huge, you don't really want to go too much bigger than this because then they'll generate their own areas. Sure, there's somebody out there that does it differently. It's how I do it. This is how my mentors and people I talk to have done it. GTs require more room. Shrek's like just over 300 grams. He's a big guy. He's an insular mix, but the GTs can be like 500-600 grams, or massive monsters. So yeah, that's kind of the thing with them. I have a bonded pair now that still gets a little tiffs. Usually it's just like bad breeding bites from the male, which the females. I wish I could show pictures. They heal so fast, it's so progressive. They'll shed like 4 times in 1 week. They're supernatural almost. But they are bonded. They sleep next to each other on the glass. They do things together. They kind of eat together. They'll drink out of their water bowl together. You could tell real fast when a pair is broken up, and they do break up. Shrek was paired with the female for 1.5 years. And they got into it one night. I remember pulling apart, his blood all over the place. It was disgusting. And the thing is, these geckos, unless you go in to get them, right, they're so lazy. They're just kind of like sitting there, and then they floop on the ground, and it's like, oh man, you're such a, they're not a very active animal, so you can't imagine getting in fights. And when you see them in fights, they're so loud and so vocal and so visceral to each other. It's eye opening. It's very, very, very Mother Nature, man. It's scary stuff.
So initially, are there any signs where you could tell that's fighting and that's not breeding behavior?
Yeah, man. When they're missing limbs, it's like, hey, okay. No, the breeding behavior is very female being submissive and male being aggressive. That you'll see. Oh, almost broke myself. You'll see bites on the back of the female's neck, bites on the back of her head. That's really normal. And that's just, they have such big jowls and they have massive teeth. A bite from a Lychee is like a little monitor, man. They're very serious, very aggressive biters. And when you start seeing especially stuff on the jowls and on the cheeks, stomach bites, sometimes they'll rip off each other's tails. It's really weird. They have these really short little prehensile tails with lamellae on the end. So it's actually got like a toe on the end of its tail. They'll actually regrow their tails, which is like the weirdest thing in the world. Because like crested geckos don't regrow their tails. But yeah, man, I wish I could show you. They're like, these guys are they're just like sitting on a glass next to each other, whatever, like this. And so that's how you know they're bonded. They're once they start being separate, once they start getting food aggressive, and if it happens in the middle of the night, your house isn't really loud, you will hear them vocalizing. They'll start barking and chirping, and you hear them wrestling around. They're big geckos. You hear them fighting around in their cage. You definitely separate them. Limb bites, stomach bites, jowl bites, any of that stuff you want to immediately separate. You can re-establish those animals back together. I've heard of it happening. The best thing to do, and again, this is my suggestion. I'm not a scientist. I'm not like I'm just a guy. I would suggest putting them in separate tubs or enclosures, taking that main where their establishment is and sanitizing it, cleaning it, take everything out, get rid of the dirt, get rid of the logs, and then put all new stuff in. Or do you use, say you got some, I got some gargoyle geckos, I'll swap out cages. Okay, well, I'm gonna put everybody over here. I'm gonna use this stick, whatever, however you want to decorate it. Swap those out. and then give them a week or two, make sure everybody's healed up. You'd be surprised how fast they heal. Blew my mind the first time I saw it. And then pair them back up. Middle of the night, put them together, stick around, keep your flashlight in hand, and give them a couple hours and see how they do. If they seem to be pretty tame within that first 3 to 4 hours, you're probably good overnight. See what they look like in the morning. If they're starting to hang out together again, boom, you got a nice pair. Pretty and you're lucky. You might get eggs, and then you might get a pair of eggs. You might get a pair of infertile eggs. You might get 4 eggs in a year. You might get 6 eggs in a year. They're really, really interesting to keep and breed. There's so many little facets to them that kind of go from there.
So have you hatched out Leeches?
Mm-hmm. This will be my 3rd year hatching Leeches. So I've got a pair. I got a pair of eggs that's due in about 40 days. Last year, I think I hatched out 6 or 7, something like that. And the year before, I only got 1 fertile egg hatched out though. So then that's the thing, man. You might spend a lot of Leeches are real expensive. You might spend a lot of money on Leeches, and you get yourself a pair, and then a couple grand into it, put them together, and they might not agree. You might not get eggs. You might still have 2 geckos, but that's this male up here and the female below, which she's not in a good mood right now. They're never going to pair up again. And I keep talking about Shrek. This gecko just means a lot. I had him for a long time. He has become so special to me, and even my family. My daughter loves him and stuff. I'm not going to pair him up again. I'm afraid something's going to happen to him. And he's not like I take him out. I hold him. I show him to people. People love him. He's cool, but I don't take him. I don't anthropomorphize him beyond being a reptile, but he is part of my kind of reptile family, and I don't want to see something else happen to him. So I have had babies from him, and I've got buddies that I actually given away a few of his babies, so I get to watch them grow. But it's not a guaranteed thing. But yeah, so this will be my 3rd season with the Leeches.
And are eggs similar to, say, like crested geckos, gargoyle geckos? Are all those eggs pretty similar?
Really the only difference between a crested gecko to a gargoyle to a Lychee is going to be size and kind of how they hatch. Crested geckos hatch in a blaze of glory. Gargoyles and Lychees are both in that Rhacodactylus family. They start sweating. They start coming out with little bits of pope, a little nose out, and a couple of days sometimes get out. Lychees are identical, just longer incubation times. If you're in the 80 to 82 degrees, don't go any hotter than that. Maybe 84 if you just really want a Lychee coming out fast. You might see 90 days. I've seen 140 days, 138 days for a Lychee to hatch. In fact, hold on 1 second. Oh yeah, this is cool. Let me show you something. They take a long time to come out, so you'll have. I don't know if you can see this little guy, little gargoyle gecko coming out.
Oh damn!
So his little head's poked out, and he's coming out. So what I do when I start seeing him sweat, so the eggs release an enzyme so that the gecko's egg tooth has a little bit easier time cutting out. I put them into little enclosures, a little deli cup, a little moist towel in there, so they hatch on their own. They get out. Sometimes they'll hatch in the middle of the night. Now you got a gecko just like flipping over all the other eggs. So I like to do that. I usually catch them sweating. They sweat for about 8 hours before they start pipping. Sometimes a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less. That's not, I'm not a scientist. But yeah, so they'll kind of poke their nose out, they'll poke their head out. That guy was pipping this morning, so he'll probably come out sometime tonight, tomorrow.
So what does incubation look like in comparison to just that deli cup with moist towel?
What do you mean?
So what does incubation medium and everything look like?
I use either vermiculite or perlite, standard mixture. I put mine in sealed. I use those bento boxes from Walmart, and what I'll do is I'll maybe. So my room here in Corpus Christi, I'm about 500 yards from the ocean, so I have pretty high humidity in here. Maybe it's 55 to 60% all the time. And with specific animals, I got to be really careful to keep the humidity out. So I'm using perlite. I used perlite last season. I've used vermiculite for 19 years, and I swear I just wanted to see the eggs on a different color medium. I swear, I don't know what it was. I was like, I'm going perlite. I'm incubating my snake eggs right now on vermiculite, but I'm not going to suggest how to mix the perlite or vermiculite. Look that up, find out what works for you. But I use my bento boxes, and I take a paper towel and I crumble it up. So they have these two little squares. I want to grab it and show you, but I'll knock it over and I'll kill all the eggs.
It's worth it.
It's worth it. Here, I'll show you real quick. Hold on.
No. Don't risk any eggs.
No, I'm not. So this is a bento box. Name brand. I'm actually sponsored by these guys. This is from Target. I'm just kidding. So I have a little bit of water in this side, and then I put a dry paper towel over here, and then so I keep my eggs relatively dry. But if you notice, there's a lot of condensation on the lid, and you got to be really careful. You don't want to get too much water on the eggs, so these waters are okay. So what this does is almost like a sim container. The reason for the paper towel is it collects a little bit of the excess humidity coming off the lid. The reason for the water is it keeps my humidity up. And then I have a drier incubation medium so that it doesn't promote as much mold. And I found that this works great. Again, anybody out there, please don't do this because it'll probably kill all your eggs. That's
the most intense, brilliant kind of little design that I've seen. So if anyone wants to check out the video, you can actually see how to do that, and it's just interesting. I've never seen anyone do it like that.
I knew I wanted to up my humidity without upping the amount of moisture on the actual eggs, but then you wanted to kind of find something that was going to wick that moisture off, and I do that with just a dry paper towel. So I always have humidity being generated by the water in there, but I always have humidity being wicked by that paper towel. You can change that paper towel out every once in a while. It's going to get sopping wet. You'll kind of see, and it works. I think there's some really complex things out there. Sometimes we can find something really simple like that works. That kind of just checks all those boxes. It's like, so I guess as far as incubation goes, I incubate these guys on top of some snake racks. Sits about 78 degrees, kind of all the time. In fact, when my snakes, if I have something come out of quarantine, I like to put them on top. I wish I could show you here. I guess snakes just come out of quarantine. I actually keep them in their quarantine tubs post cleaning on top of snake racks because I know that they're about 78 degrees. And I have hygrometers and temperature things that tell you the temperature. I don't know what those are called. I've got them all over the room. Oh, thermometers. Those. All right, man. I get it. It's a thermometer. So I'm an engineer, and so I'm constantly analyzing parameters. I'm like the guy that I weigh geckos, I weigh snakes, I weigh. So post brumation, I will weigh my snakes. Once I start pairing, I'll weigh my snakes. Once I get a pre-ovulation shed, I weigh my snakes, and then post egg laying, I weigh my snakes. That way, I can kind of see where all those little. I'm kind of overanalyze certain things. Those parameters will let me know in the future what's a healthy way to breed this snake at. I just got a clutch of corn eggs the other day. Female was 428 grams. On the day of pre-lay shed, she laid 13 beautiful eggs. Post egg laying, that ran out to a toothpaste look. She was 308, something like that. I wrote down. Neat to analyze. Where are the healthy parameters for the animals in your collection? So I don't necessarily think it's important to analyze all of those parameters for everybody, but it's neat. It's like your own little science experiments. You can kind of do that with it.
Yeah, I think that's like the most responsible way to do things. Definitely not how I do it, just because I feel like that would take out all the fun for me to do. I don't know. Some people are like built to do it that way, and I respect that. And I wish I was one of you, but
no, I don't always sleep a ton. Sometimes I overanalyze things, and so I said before, my any of my successes are mirrored in kind by failures. So let's just, I'll talk about some of the snakes I'm breeding. I got these two corn snakes. I had planned pairings so that I have a really pretty, she's a reverse Ogre, high red, Not really sure if there's any red factor things, whatever's going on. Still trying to figure that out. She wasn't not a really big lineage animal. You've seen her; she's beautiful. And I paired her with a male stripe tessera. I don't know if I say tessera right. Sorry.
That's how I say it, but most people call it tessera, but I call it tessera.
Yeah, tessera sounds.
Good company, yeah.
And he's from Don Soderbergh over at SMR. So he is het albino and het anery, and we know that because I trust that lineage, and so paired them up, and I'd like to find out one if that female is het anery, because so many of them are, het snow, whatever the right terminology would be. So many of them are. So many male animals have that in them, and then also that's the project I want to work towards. I'm probably going to keep most of that clutch back because I want to create this striped animal is perfect, and if I could take that and get the colors of that female, may take a few generations of line breeding. But man, that's a great project. but then, like what I was saying, I had a silver queen, which is a line bred, and I don't remember who the originator of that line was, but I believe it's a Miami ghost. Just the most beautiful ghost you can have, barely any patterning on her, almost no yellow. Again, raised this animal up. Actually, not completely true. Very close friend of mine raised her up from a hatchling. I've had her for a couple years. I actually didn't breed her last year because I didn't have something good to pair her to. I think planned pairings is a good idea. You really want to know what you're going for. You don't want to just throw animals together just willy-nilly, see what's going to happen. And so I've got this JMG, just the pinkest coral snow. I may not say all of these morphs right. I'm sorry. I'm not the best with the names.
No, I mean, really, I'm not that picky about it. I know my projects. Some of the other ones,
yeah. So, but this guy, I mean, he is the pinkest, the most beautiful. He's got those green saddles, when they get that perfect coloration on him, and he's pure JMG, so he's JMG to JMG, back to what he's gorgeous. And I paired him up. I actually paired him and that AML up. I'm sorry, both pairs around the same time. I actually saw visual locks with him and her. And so man, I'm probably getting ahead of myself. I'm lucky with breeding snakes because I don't really have a winter. Like, it gets a little cold, not really. So I just have a wine cooler so I can do my, 10 weeks of brumation. Actually, you put a little air stone in there. So if anybody's planning on putting snakes in a wine cooler, make sure you're about 55 to 58 degrees and you put an air stone for like a aquarium in there. Just make sure air's going. I'm sure you could open it up and check on them daily. You can do whatever. I don't know the best way to do that, but I know that if I'm aerating that enclosure, they're going to have ample amounts of air. Now you still want to be checking on them. I mean, I'm not talking about how to breed animals, but so that's how I did it. So I got them both at the same time. I got everybody fed up around the same time, paired them up, and that female she went gray just about the same time as the AML did. AML did her pre-lay shed, did great. And then that ghost she just didn't shed. Not really sure what was going on, and she was plump. You could feel the eggs in her. I felt her when she was ovulating. I knew when she was gravid, and I took her out. I soaked her in about a half inch of water. Her skin started shedding off a little bit, and my humidity's high. I get perfect sheds out of everything. I mean, I got Chinese beauties that shed and don't even have to worry about tail tips or anything. And man, I pulled her out and I could just tell she was lethargic. I knew that this, I kind of knew she wasn't going to make it. And Friday night, the snake just died in my hands. You could put every level of completion and accuracy into all of these animals. And I hope I'm not talking about a bunch of animals dying. I've only had a couple out of quite a few. But you can put your whole heart into this. You put all your emotion in this. You can put all of your analytics into this. You put all your accuracy into this, and you still have that beautiful snake that you love, your daughter loves, your wife thinks she's just gorgeous. You have that planned pair. You knew this pair was going to produce beautiful babies. You knew it, and it's dead in your hands. And that's only on you. It's not you decided to do that. You decided to pair these animals up, whether she died egg bound or whatever. Now, I did freeze her. I would like to get a necropsy done in the future. Right now, the only exotic vet that's close to me is closed. 2020 is really kicking everybody's ass. But yeah, man. So those successes can be mirrored directly by failures, and that failure could be in your hands just as well as that success can. So it's one thing you really got to prepare for.
Yeah, and that's something to where that really makes or breaks you. You're either gonna decide to keep on going, or that's gonna put a hamper on things. And I think that everyone goes through that. And I mean, the
Yeah,
people who have, like yourself, I mean, people have been around 20 years or so. You're going to get those situations, and the fact that you're
absolutely.
still doing it, like it gives credit to the fact that you're really in for it. You're not gonna
Oh
give
yeah.
up when it goes bad.
These I'm gonna have these animals as pets. I'm gonna have them as long as I can. Whether I'm sorry, my phone just went off. I need to put it on. I don't know, it's off now. I want to have these animals as long as I can in my care. I didn't get any of them because I didn't want to care for them. I didn't get any of them as Are there projects? Yes. I think I talked to you a little bit before the podcast. I got this like Noah's Ark syndrome. I like getting an animal. For a while, I bred Pachydaktylus tigrinus, which is the Zimbabwe tiger gecko. It's one of the Pachydaktylus species. They're micro geckos. They're super cool. They're communal. You can leave the babies in. They lay their eggs and sand and stuff. And I had those for a little bit more than a year. I raised them up from puppies. They did great. I was able to hand feed them. They're little monitors. Super cool little species. And but then I ended up taking that project and passing it on to somebody else. That's part of this hobby too. You don't keep. Not everything ends up being it's not everything's a lifetime pet, and that's something everybody's got to remember. But I was absolutely guaranteed 100% ready to keep those animals for the rest of their lives if need be. Yeah, that's them, man. They're really neat. That's man. Yeah, they hunt. It's almost like they hunt in packs. You throw a bunch of little crickets. They're tiny, so you can throw little pinhead crickets or even little fruit flies, especially the babies. And you could throw them in there, man. They'll all come out of different. I got videos of them eating. They're really, really cool. And why didn't I keep them? I don't know. It just some of the desert species are a little more difficult. I had a lot of rosy boas for a while until I live in a wildlife preservation. In fact, I'm like 500 yards from where Jake from the Herpetoculture podcast got bit by an Atrox. So we have about 30,000 Atrox right down the street. I see them all the time, almost every day. And so I found out that boas, pythons, varanids, and certain species of rear fang snakes are illegal. So that's, I'm one of those people that's not going to risk any local laws. I'm not going to risk my collection. I got species of snakes I spent a long time looking for, years. I've been on waiting lists for certain animals for years. I'm still on waiting lists to be able to find animals. You find some of these breeders, there's still snakes out there that I just cannot find. I can't find people working with them.
Yeah, and is that something that, and I know someone else who lives in Texas who had a situation like that, as far as local laws and stuff like that. How'd you figure that out eventually?
So for me, when I got my one was living next to a wildlife reservation. The other one was when I got my business license. So in order to be able to vend shows, you want to be able to have your business license. Also, you need to be paying your taxes. I'm just one of those people. Let's not lie to anybody. Let's just do the best we can. Pay your taxes, do your thing, do your part. You don't have to, whatever. I didn't say that allegedly, but I got my business license so that I knew, and also I spent 15 years building the career that I'm in now. I'm not going to risk that over anything else, whether it's a hobby, whether it's a passion, whether it's a lifetime love. I'm going to do everything as legally and completely as possible. Anyways, in getting that, I'm a nerd. And so I started looking into like city ordinances and like what animals can't keep. One of the things that brought this up is and we'll kind of maybe talk a little bit about the Pitiophis complex. So my goal over the last maybe 5 years has been to collect and keep all of the Pitiophis species, all of them. As you know, Rutheni, the Louisiana pine snakes, are a protected species in Texas. So I went to great lengths to find out how I could have them here, and you can. There are some stipulations. You cannot breed them, you cannot sell them, but you can have them. There is ways to do that. So you have to prove where you got them. I believe you have to get them out of state. You have to have interstate commerce license regardless, bringing them across state lines. So like I got black pine snakes, kind of similar, but because they're not protected in Texas, all I had to do is have an interstate commerce license to get them outside of Texas. I did buy mine in Texas. But so looking into the Louisiana pine snakes, I started working on the paperwork with Fish and Wildlife to be able to have them. I just wanted them in my collection. My decision to not bring them into my collection is kind of that pay it forward mentality. I don't plan on breeding everything I have every year, but I do want to try and have success with all the species that I do have. So whether that is, and that's the reason why I don't have, but anyways, in that long, very long explanation for a very simple thing, as I was going through the laws to make sure I was doing everything right, I noticed, and then talking to some guy, the dude down the street with like a python hanging on his neck isn't going to get in trouble. They're not going to bust you for any of this stuff unless somebody's complaining, which they shouldn't be anyways. If you're doing it, your due diligence to be a neighborly person. There's requirements for the distance in which you can have a certain number of animals from your house in this county. I have to be from my collection to the next person's front door. I have to be 500 feet, which is less than you think actually. But that's a stipulation in my county. So that would mean if I had it, anyways, there's a lot of little infinite things you can get into, but Nueces County is a little strict. So I can't have any boas, pythons. I love Morelia, love chondros, stuff like that. Can't have it, and honestly just won't risk it.
Yeah. I mean, at some point it's not worth it. And plus, I mean, you've been into all these things that you don't necessarily need those species. You have plenty of species to have fun with. Yeah.
And started with Pityophis, and then it kind of went over to Pantherophis, and that kind of dribbled down into Bogertrophis, and then now I'm on that endless looking for Stenocolus. So that's kind of
damn.
I will have them. I will.
You saw KZ Lazic produced them, right, this year?
You know what? I'm not sure exactly who that is. I probably should know, and I'm very sorry.
That's a bad one. Sorry.
Should I?
He also bred like shingleback skinks.
Oh! You see the guy on rough scales?
Rough scales as well. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I know.
He's basically the man. So.
Yeah. Okay. Then I definitely know. Yeah, I know who you're talking about. Him. The guy that I got my Rosalie from. He actually breeds them. I'm not getting his name out, so none of you scumbags can get on his list. I'm on his list. Leave me alone. But like Baja rats, I actually have 2 different localities of them. That's a species that just like looking for it. It's similar to Stenocolus. There's not a ton of information out there. There is information out there though, and if you find the right people to talk to, you can. Don't be afraid to message somebody and ask them, "Hey man, how you doing?" That you might get an FU every time, but you'll find somebody who's going to help you out. One of the people that produced one of the localities that I have. Was helped me out. Dusty Rhodes wrote a great book on Bogertrophis. I may not be saying that right, so I'm sorry. It's like the weirdest, Subocularis and so Transpagos rat snakes and Baja rats. So yeah, those there's books out there on all that stuff, and that's that's one thing I'll kind of promote to anyone listening. Try to find things you really love and try to generate. For me, it's a collection. Will these animals be bred? That's the goal. But I don't have my projects that maybe I want to try to stimulate my funds for other projects are probably going to be more simple, more direct animals. It's I'm not going to go to a restaurant show with a table full of Baja rats or something and try to, hey kids, it's a perfect first snake. That's probably not the best way to promote this hobby and to build new people in it. I got a lot of species that are really easy to keep.
Where are you at now on Pityophis? I mean, do you have most of the species that are available?
I have most of the species. I'm this year. My goal is to hopefully get Pityophis lineaticollis. There's actually 2 subspecies of those. As far as I know, it's maybe wrong. Only the lineaticollis are produced in captivity. A lot of the Mexico stuff and the Baja stuff is hard to get a hold of. So like I have Pityophis vertebralis, but I do not have Pityophis bimaris. The bimaris, I know there's people out there that produce them. Also, you can't
Cape gophers.
Yeah, so one is the Baja Cape gopher and one is the Cape gopher. So
so easy to.
It's and it's at one point they were bimaris vertebralis, but I believe that's been swapped up. One starts red and goes dark, and one starts dark and goes red. But they and also you don't this, you don't want to buy 100 animals in a year. You don't want to you want to space out building something like this, and like I said, it's been about 5 years. As far as all the Pityophis catenifer, which is going to be your bull snakes, pine snakes. I have 3 localities of bull snakes, as well as I think I have every morph in the catalog. So albinos, antares, patternless, white-sided, and hypo. There are 2 lines of hypos, 2 lines of antares. I don't have every line of hypo and every line of antares, but I do have combinations of all of that stuff. And then I also have some F1s and some F0s of some Texas localities, which are awesome. I love the locality stuff, but I also like the morph stuff. But the only catenifer that I don't have is the 2 insular species. There are, I believe, Santa Cruz and then Catalina Island. I might be wrong on that. And again, that's just, I believe one of them is a protected species, and nobody. One's Pulmaris, and I'm not even going to try to say the other one. I don't know if anybody's even working with them. You can go through your regular avenues. There's some big names out there, and I know you know a lot of the Pityophis names. I think you even had Jason Nelson on here. A lot of these guys are great sources of information. I've gotten animals from him, working with some of the other big guys. But yeah, so other than that, yeah, and then I don't have any in Louisiana pines because Texas is really lenient on a lot of stuff. There's like, I can't have reticulated banded geckos, which is Coleonyx reticulatus, and then like a couple of them. I mean, it's pretty wide open. Pretty sure I can have tigers. That's my next step. I'm gonna start working with felines.
Hey, brother, you might get that. Was it toxoplasmosis or whatever? Maybe that's what makes all them go crazy.
Hell yeah!
You get like a brain parasite from cat shit, right?
Oh, that's. I mean, if there was ever a dream of my life, Joe, that's what it is.
I mean, it could be you. That's why all those people are crazy, man.
That is definitely not the meth. You know what I mean? That doesn't even it barely even affects you. I did 2 whole methamphetamines today. I mean, that was just breakfast. But anyways, man, yeah. So no, black pines. This year, pairing up. I paired up some of my Nueces County bull snakes. These are my little homegrown babies. They're monsters. Bull snakes are some of the neatest locality animals out there. Kankakee bull snakes. There's even like Alberta, Canada. There's some that go up like in Canada. They're smaller, they're darker, they're black. And then you start getting south down here. Just south of here is Clayburgh County. Everybody, the infamous Kingsville Reds. So the Nueces County animals are really peach. You can go a little bit more west, and you'll hit the McMullen County. I've got some of those animals, just gorgeous patterns, colors. They're all a little bit diverse in every little population you go to. So I paired up some Nueces this year. I actually didn't brumate them. I hadn't planned on pairing them up. God, they're both 6 foot long. They're plenty of size, and I was just like, we'll try it. They're the female's over 3 years old. The male's young. So I don't have any dreams or aspirations that really happened this year, but I'm comfortable with her being paired. Him, I mean, if the guy doesn't do it, it's not going to hurt him. You know what I mean? But then I've got some San Diego stuff, some Dyer's albino. I'm looking at the labels because I don't remember. With Morse, I always forget the name. Dyer's albino and stripe. So San Diego, I know you've probably heard this. There's 4 different lines of albino. And I think they're extremely convoluted, but I got a beautiful wild type female that's het for both of those morphs, and then I got a male that's visual for both. Then yeah, as far as pines go, I've got some New Jersey Giants. I've got my northern pines are the high white animals with a lot of black, but they're from a line from 3 different localities. Back in the day, they called them Jersey Giants. I don't know if they call them anymore, but mine are 6 months old. I think they're like 400 and something grams. I don't know. They could eat a corn snake. they're pretty big for being 6 months old. Yeah, as far as Pituophis goes, that's that. I've got some albino southern pine stuff. I have both. So there's only one line of albino southern pine, but there's 2 different variants of it. I have both variants of it.
Those southern pines, when they get to be red and white, with age, are just amazing looking.
So there's the red and white line. Well, they're not lines. It's weird. They come out of the same clutch. You can have a clutch with both different colorations. They're polymorphic animals anyways, right? Like everyone looks a little different. But then you have some that are like really peachy cream. In the leucistics, which I'll hopefully have this year, there's 3 different colorations. There's pink leucistics, white leucistics, and yellow leucistics. And those bred together will give you all different variations of those in that same clutch. I don't know if there's other things, there's hypomelanistics, there's patternless, there's other things maybe working with those genes that are just tag-alongs that people haven't realized, or maybe haven't done a lot of line breeding with. But I do know that those animals come in a bunch of different colors. It's really, southern pines are great. Other than the fact that they're like for sure out of all of them the least happy.
Really?
Yeah, I think out of northern pines are like, if you can deal with the size, they're probably the nicest. Oh, and then the Mexican pines. North. I have North Mexican pines, the Pituophis depijani, but I have yet to find any deppies. Again, I know that there's people that work with them. It's just not overloading myself with too much.
Those aren't small snakes.
No, and you need to have your room prepared. You need to be prepared to be able to put all of these animals into adult size enclosures when you buy them as a baby. Bull snakes are. I think a bull snake should be in captivity about 6 foot. Some of them are going to get bigger than that. Some of them are going to be smaller than that. My Kankakee female is over 3 years old, and she's like, I think she's under 5 foot still. My Nueces County female is 3 years old, and she's about 6. She's about 5.5, 6 foot. And so every one of these species has different sizes, and you can keep them in a lot of different ways. I will say, so I've kind of started doing this thing, and we'll get there when we start talking about rat snakes. I'm doing what I'm calling bioactive tubs. I like bioactive enclosures. I think that anything that's going to ease your cleaning is great. With the Pituophis, they don't do the best in that because they are, as you know, they kind of poop pretty rowdy. They poop for keeps, man. When they go, man. And you might be cleaning a whole enclosure every time they poop. I do like keep them on substrate. I think the Pituophis really do excel on like an aspen bedding. I'm sure you could use Carefresh or something like that. I'm allergic to like all of it, so yeah, I always wear gloves in my pictures. They like to burrow down. They like to dig down. They like dark enclosures. They like opaque enclosures. I have tried bulls in naturalistic setups that were really pretty similar to these, proper heat panel, and they don't do well. They start getting extremely defensive, as you know. Pituophis can be really sassy animals, and usually you can calm them down. Usually you can keep them pretty tame. But the way to do that is through proper temperatures and kind of secluding them. Once you start really letting them see everything that's going on in a room, I think they don't do as well. Whereas kind of like if you look at the rat snakes, I think it's kind of what drew me towards the rat snakes as well. So I kind of wanted some snakes I was going to be able to see because I do plan on doing bioactive kind of display enclosures on a lot of these animals. Which again, that's plan for the future. Don't get a pair of corn snakes might be pretty easy. But a pair of bull snakes are not going to go in that 20-gallon long. It's not going to work. They get pretty beefy, man, and they eat a lot. So that's
they definitely at least some of them the food response can be pretty crazy. And I mean these are animals that stay underground a lot of the time, so they don't necessarily love you.
No, you can get them to where they're very formidable with handling. My daughter, I got F1 bull snakes. They're the first generation captive bred bull snakes. My daughter will hold them. She's 3.5 years old. I think I even posted a picture recently about her holding one. or at least, well, me holding it, but her being involved in the holding of it, and they're fine. Some of them don't do that. Some of them don't swap over. Some species, I think, I don't have any experience with Louisiana pines, but I know the more south you get, the more hot tempered they get. But then you get into the Deppies, the Mexican pine snakes. They're kind of just like northern pine snakes. They're really, in my experience, very tame. So that's I don't know. I think Pitchiophis get a little bit of a bad rap. Sometimes I think they get kept a little too hot. Sometimes I think they get maybe overfed to where they're overstimulated by food. Sometimes people. I know there's people out there that get bull snakes to 6 foot in a year and a half. And maybe that's not the best. My male pine snake, or one of my male bulls, kind of got that big on his own. I got a 2.5-year-old Kankakee male that's fed on the same schedule as a 2-year-old Nueces County bull, and the Nueces County bull not only would eat him, he'd eat his mom, he'd eat his next door neighbor. He's massive. He's somehow, I don't know. This guy's he's just like a nuclear apocalypse Godzilla snake. But they're all different, and you got to read them. You got to be a student of them. You got to learn them. You got to know what they're doing. And I don't know. Kind of ranting. I'm sorry.
As far as the temperament goes on the gophers, and I don't know, obviously you don't have the Lineacalis. Is that how you
Lineacalis? I think it's right.
There's a T in there. And then do you know if those are a little bit more flighty in comparison to, say, like the bulls and pines who may have that defense posture and stuff like that?
So your Sonoran gophers, in my experience, are a little bit closer to bulls in that kind of defensive posture. That can't even say it, but the noise they make, and I know the name of the organ that they have, the epiglottis. Their motto, their evolved epiglottis that allows them to make that hissing sound. They all do it super cool. What's really neat is they all sound a little different, which is kind of, any one of these snakes can be defensive at any time. Maybe you're cleaning the enclosure out, you drop the water bowl, it makes a loud noise, but they all have different tones, and so that's kind of a neat little idiosyncrasy to see about these animals. But yeah, so your San Diego gophers are probably like the most corn snake-esque. Again, these are going to be my personal reflections of my collection and the animals I've worked with over the years. I have actually had bull snakes and pine snakes going way back, never to this scale, I guess. So I find that San Diegos are like the chillest, man. They're super calm. They're kind of like chubby corn snakes. They got a lot more girth to them. As you go up the coast, so you have your Athens, which is your Sonorans. They kind of streamline bull snakes a little bit. They're a little more flighty, a little less defensive, if that kind of makes sense. Bull snakes are like defensive. They're like the Louisville Sluggers of these snakes. And when they're mad, you know it. Your next door neighbor probably knows it. So then when you go into your Athens, which are Sonoran gophers, the separation between the two is they're a little bit flightier. And also, we can kind of derive this from how far into captive breeding are we on these animals? Have they been line bred for 16 generations? Now you have these crazy, patternless, crazy 4 or 5 morph combo snakes. Well, F1s or even like a wild caught. What's the difference there? So then you get to your Anectons, which are going to be your San Diegos. I may have swapped those up. I've been drinking.
I don't know.
And so your San Diegos are like super chill. And even from what I've read in the wild, they're extremely calm. Mine, even from babies, never did the defensive posture. I've never heard them do their little kind of Pitchiophis hiss. And then as you kind of go up that stream, you'll run into your Pacific gophers, which are your cantenifer, and they're kind of similar to the San Diegos. They're a little thinner of a snake, but they're still kind of on that chubbier side. And then that goes in your Great Basins, which is your Deserticolos, and they're a little more defensive. The Deserticolos, I believe, come from a little bit smaller range, a little bit more spread out range. So that's kind of their deal. Mine also on those are F1s, so that may be the reason they're a little more defensive. As far as the pines go, really my southern pines, and half of my black pines really hate me. I have yet to meet a southern pine that was really happy to be held. But yeah, my black pines, both as babies were great, and now at about a little over 2 years old, kind of creeping on 3 years old. One of them has just become real defensive. The other one hasn't. Just kind of the way they are. I also have not tried to grow any of these snakes really fast. Pine snakes, I think, are a 4-year project for anybody that wants to get into breeding them. I think that you can do yourself a favor and kind of push any Pitiophis at least 3 years for females, maybe 4 years. You got to remember these snakes have huge eggs. You know that. You got Louisiana pines, massive eggs. You could probably pair them up at 4 years old and feel really good about it. 3 years on some of the more southern species is probably fine. My black pines, I may never pair them up. That's just one of those things, you know. And they're not easy to. What am I going to do? You know, I got to get rid of them, or I got to keep them. And for me, it's, you know, at some point, I definitely want to carry on those genetics to somebody else. But I'd want to make sure that I had people in line interested in them before just working with a protected species. It's, you know, you gotta be, well, you know, you have Louisiana pine snakes. So if you have a whole bunch of clutches, you know, shipping them out, you got your interstate commerce license, which I've actually. I have my interstate commerce license for black pine snakes, just because I know that I have them, and I want to make sure that if I ever do breed them, I'm set up and ready to go. But it also means that, you know, somebody else has to do it, which it's like a 14-page document. It's pretty simple, but it takes a few months.
Yeah, I mean, especially on those. I know at least on the Louisiana pines, 4 years is pretty much non-negotiable. I was wondering if it was that way for all the others, and it seems like it. But
From what I know, again, I wish, you know, maybe we'll reconnoiter in about 3 or 4 years, and I'll have a little bit more experience with the actual breeding on them. I know my San Diegos were probably ready to go last year. I gave them another year, similar to some of the corn snakes. I'm not. If you go into this only worried about when you're going to pair them up, when you're going to breed them, when you're going to get babies, you're not going to have success. You're not going to have success financially. You're not going to have success emotionally. You're going to find yourself distraught in the situation. You will find the hobby lackluster at that point. It will become a job, and I think people need to kind of recognize that if your only plans are to breed and sell these animals, maybe it's not the best hobby. Fix cars, sell race cars and stuff. I did that for a while. It's pretty cool, but you know, made a lot more money doing that.
Yeah, I mean, you could pretty much buy anything else. Think about any type of retail store, something that you don't have to feed and clean and doesn't have the potential of dying. I mean,
that's the thing, man.
Yeah, and it's and not only that, but these are non-essential items in which people don't need to buy. It's a nice to buy. So
yeah,
you get hit in times like this of, say, the coronavirus, and you need to be willing to hold on to some animals if you have to over the summer or who knows how long.
That's, you know, obviously I'm not a epidemiologist or whatever the correct term for that is, but I don't have any. Well, that's not true. I shipped out some gargoyles last week, but you know, it's who of me to think about the future as far as, you know, if I had produced a lot of clutches this year, I don't have a show to go to in August or June or July. I don't have plans set up for December. Now I'm looking at next year. Well, now I've got to house 50, 60 animals, and we don't really know exactly what's going to happen. At least I don't. I definitely don't. You know, the hope is that people are still going to be spending a little money stimulating the hobby. You know, I find comfort in this. You know, if I'm having a bad day, my kid, you know, maybe she's asleep, maybe my wife is watching a TV program, and I'm like, well, what, you know, I don't really have anything to do. Maybe I'll come in here and I'll start, you know, I'll weigh some snakes. That'll be like my excuse. Oh man, I gotta go weigh those, you know, Baja rat snakes. I don't know. You know, it's a getaway for me, you know, mentally, and it stimulates my brain. And as far as, you know, I'm not gonna like hold all my animals and pet them, and you know, this one's name is Bob. So that my stimulation through the hobby maybe taking notes or weighing animals or something like that. Taking pictures. I suck at taking pictures. I have like all these animals, and I post like 3 pictures a year on Instagram. I'm trying to get my soul. I suck at social media, but I'm trying to like get that built up and like show people a few of the species I'm working with. Yeah, I'm getting there, but it's not for them. It's for me, really, in the end, right?
Yeah, and I think that especially the times that I've gotten down on it, you got to go in there and you got to like work with your animals. It's mostly because I'm like too far apart from doing the dirty work and doing, and actually getting in there and actually playing with the animals. Sometimes I got to take them out just to look at them and appreciate
them. Fresh shed on something that you just one of your favorite species to work with, and maybe you hadn't been paying a lot of attention to it. Get it out and you just appreciate that animal and take some pictures of it. Whether it's for social media or not, it's just, I've got some corns that I've been raising, a few different morphs and genetics that I'm working with. God, sometimes you open up that tub or that enclosure or whatever it's going to be, and you see it, and you're just, a few sheds, and it just reignites. It just completely reignites your passion in it. And that could be with 2 snakes. That could be with however many I have, and so that passion, that stimulus that can come from so many different avenues in it. But I feel like if you're one set goal, I mean, how many people over the years have we seen burn out? How many people have I seen post and selling full collections and stuff like that because they just know that it's not. They got in it to make a bunch of money, and it's not the way that. I was really, really. I've been very lucky over the last few years selling some of these animals. Some of these gargoyle geckos have gotten up really high in popularity, and as I've built a little bit of a reputation, been very lucky selling them. Not everybody has that same luck, and some people you'll end up selling their whole collection. And that's sad to see because something sparked that want, something sparked that love, kind of from the get-go. And what was that?
Yeah, and I think that you brought up a good point before, is that once you get a species, also you don't have to keep it forever. I mean, it's also nice to know what makes you happy and what not, so you don't have a collection full of snakes that you're just looking to make money off of, but you're looking at animals that you enjoy to keep.
If you base your opinions in a collection off of everything you've read on the internet, what you've done is you've bought a car without test driving it. You cannot assume something is right for you without experiencing it. Now there's probably some things that are not right for everybody. Please don't go buy black mambas, right? Like, like don't be like, well, you know what? I've always wanted a baboon viper, and they're real pretty. So there's probably a set of rules and regulations that everybody needs to attend to in their own selves. But you won't know. My current confliction is scaleless corn snakes and scaleless Texas rat snakes. I think they're beautiful. They freak me out. and I don't know. I don't know whether I like them or not. I can't decide on that. And that's not for anybody else to decide for me. That's for me to decide. And everybody needs to manage and maintain, whether it's a single animal or it's a collection, with that thought in it. Approve of suggestions and approve of ideas, especially, you get into this about how you keep your animals or how you take care of your animals. As long as you are meeting that animal's necessities and parameters so that it will thrive to what we would like to think of as maximum life. Who am I to say how you should keep an animal? That's not, would you like my suggestion? Absolutely. I'd be more than happy to give it to you, but it is not my dictation to you on how, or not you, but you know what I mean? Like a person, that is not my voice to carry across unless you're inflicting ill will on an animal, or you're just completely keeping it to where it won't thrive. That's something I think people really need to kind of conceptualize in their collections and in the hobby.
Yeah, I think everyone goes through that phase where it's like you think it's your battle to win or your fight to fight, as far as when you see someone doing something that, and maybe it's something that you don't fully understand or your mentors didn't do it that way. So I think we're seeing transitions all different ways, whether it's people, getting out of tubs, or certain species need to be in a tub and all this other stuff. And listen, I mean, no one that I admired growing up in this ever kept in anything but like a Sterlite tub.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the truth of it. So it's like, we got to be open to both things, though, I think.
Absolutely. With some of my rat snake species, I have display enclosures for some of them. My Chinese beauties are absolutely excelling in display enclosures. My Kunashir Island rat back here, shout out Evergreen State. He was on your podcast. It's actually why I ended up, he talked about the Kunashir Island rats. I was like, man, I kind of want one of those. Dude, that thing's awesome. It's great. It's ambient room temperature 76, 78 degrees, doesn't have heat on it. The thing has been, I just moved it over to this size enclosure. I had it in what I'm calling my bioactive tubs, which is just a bioactive substrate with some leaves, isopods, springtails. A lot of my rat snake species are in tubs like that. And I'm cohabiting a lot of my rat snake species. That's one of those big things. A lot of people don't cohab your snakes. A lot of some of the people that I look up to the most that are breeding a lot of the species that I have do cohab their animals. The people that I got them from were cohabbing them. Some of my yellow rats or gray rats or, this bioactive tub idea I did in the sense of it's a maintenance thing. Now I don't have to go pick up every little poop. I think I almost kind of started talking about it with the Pityophis. I tried it with the Pityophis, and when you're shoveling out half the enclosure because a bull snake, took a rowdy pooper, you really got you got to kind of contemplate and think about it. There's a little bit of financial. Aspen's a lot cheaper than bioactive bedding. Springtails are getting scooped out of that. And so with a rat snake, especially smaller rat snakes, and then even when they do get bigger, if you have an ample amount of substrate, ample amount of room, correct parameters, you want a lot more ventilation, I would say, with a lot of these species, because humidity is going to go up inherently, depending on what substrate you're using. Work on getting that ventilation right. I think ventilation is extremely important with a lot of species. And so you can do these neat little bioactive, and you can be in a tub too. It doesn't have to be a display enclosure. Now are some of these animals planned to be in display enclosures? Yeah, I think some of them are going to do great. Some are going to do really, really good in that. And I'd like to be able to showcase them in neat little individualized bioterrara, and whether they breed in that setup or not. So be it. Not exceptionally worried about that. It's for me to enjoy. But yeah, so I found that the bioactive tub idea actually kind of works really well with these species that don't poop half the tub. So
yeah, I may have to try that. I have a couple of bioactive enclosures now with the Slowinski, the male and female Slowinski's corn snakes, and then I have an emery rat snake in a bioactive, and it's kind of stupid because I actually put the most closely related of the two species that I have in my collection and put them in the same thing. I probably should have done something completely different to try it out. But yeah, so that's where I'm at with that. But I mean, so far so good. And
go ahead. Sorry.
It's really cool. I can one of the Slowinskis I don't see almost ever, and then another one is always out. So I don't even know if it matters, the species and stuff like that.
I don't think it. I almost want to say I don't think it does. It's each animal is its separate own kind of attitude, and like I said, without anthropomorphizing them too much, they all do have their own little idiosyncrasies. They have their own little things. I found my Slowinski are very very timid compared to my Texas rats. Man, Texas rats, you open up their tubs or whatever, they're out. They're hanging out. They're doing their thing. My yellow rats, gray rats, any of the species in that on it seems the more west you go are pretty bulletproof, man. They just don't care. I think I can kind of do whatever I wanted with them and they'd be all right. Fox snakes kind of my fox snakes kind of fall in that same parameter as well. They're kind of just. I don't think you could do anything wrong with a lot of these rat snakes. They're most of them are pretty chill. Most of them are pretty neat, great feeders. I mean, no problems with any of those parameters. And kind of fun, low maintenance, neat little things to have.
Yeah, I mean, not mentioning all the musky smells and stuff like that. But
when you got like all the Pitiophas, a little rat
that's
snake,
true.
that ain't gonna hurt you, man. You'd be all right. The fox snakes do kind of have like their own stink. Mine are to the point where they're not musking or anything. They did musk a little bit when they were babies, but they've got like a smell, and I know that's what they were named after. They smell like musk. Fox musk. There's something different. In full of stinky shits. Theirs is a little different. So I don't know if.
Yeah, I mean that's just an interesting snake to begin with. I mean, it's like a Pitiophis jammed into a rat snake.
It is.
Like, it makes no sense.
It's such a. I'm looking at mine right now. It's sticking its little nose up to the top. You'll find commonalities between all of these North American colubrids, and it's really neat. I would go as far as saying, like your Pitiophis depi, your North Mexican pines, probably on an inherent just first meeting level, have more in common with like a fox snake or some of these rat snake species. Or even if you get down to the boger trophy species, if you look at scalation and actually like texture, how they feel, how they act, how they react to things, a hell of a lot more than a bull snake who's got like spikes on it for scales. They're like sandpaper. They're the keeled scales. Every one of these little, each one is so different. Sometimes it kind of amazes me that they're even in the same species. I feel like the vertebralis. Are almost like a smooth snake. They don't even have keeled scales. So it's kind of everyone's man. That's the neatest thing about all this is if you delineate yourself from the idea of only wanting to breed and produce and make money and that, and once you get to have a collection that though you may produce and you may make money off of all of this, you really get to find out all the little neat things, and then those commonalities that link all these species together. It really creates a neatness to the hobby.
Yeah, what is it about you and wanting to complete the puzzles of whole genuses or different areas and stuff like that? What do you think that
is? So it's probably the same reason why I've owned 10 Miatas. It's probably the same reason why I have almost every episode or every issue of Swamp Thing. It is probably I have a very bad collection mentality. It has actually derived me away from species. Like I'm so scared to get back into. I'll turn to one of my favorite snakes. My old favorite thing to do was buy the alterna that people didn't want anymore because they weren't eating, and get them feeding. So using all the little tricks. And my fear was that once I got into alterna, well then now I've got to have every locality. I've got to have every morph. And that man. Like with bull snakes, I wanted every locality I could get my hands on for bull snakes. I wanted every morph I could get my hands on. So now I've got all of these different parameters to and it feels the collection. It completes me. It's so loud. At one point I wanted to breed every new Caledonian gecko. At one point I wanted to breed every species of Coleonyx. And in fact, the only species of Coleonyx in captivity that I didn't really get to work with was the elegans, which is the Yucatan Peninsula banded gecko, and it was literally almost just because I couldn't find it. Other than one breeder, I didn't know anybody else working with it. And most of the Coleonyx you're gonna find, this is kind of a heads up to anybody. Coleonyx are one of the most amazing species to work with. Most of the ones you're gonna find are gonna be wild caught. So prepare to have an animal for just. Honestly, a couple of years, you're not going to really be able to hold on to it for more than 5-7 years. But yeah, there's some level of collection mentality with the Pantherophis. I'm almost completing that, and then getting into all the North American rat snakes. I feel like if I want to know the difference between this one and that one. I want to know the difference between the next one and the next one and the next one.
Well, how specific are you getting? Because if you want to get real specific, like you can get like the thorn scrub emery rats or like the Deckert's rat snakes, and there's like little things that used to be separate that aren't
So yeah,
anymore, but are still a little bit different.
so you go like Pantherophis emery, and then you got Melomorum. And so at first I was like, all right, so what I want to try to do is get like common taxonomy. So my general consensus on taxonomy is you don't get to refute science without better science, right? You don't get to tell me that science is wrong unless you can prove it to be better science. Well, I believe that me and the snake community have done better science. And so with Pantherophis, so you have, and I'm probably not going to remember exactly all of the specific scientific names. So originally I was like, all right, I want Allegahensis, I want Spilotes, I want my Texas rats, Leiden. I'm sorry, I don't remember. Emery, Emery. But then I started really appreciating what work had been done in the past, and especially like people like Kris Montrose, Dark Horse Herpetoculture. I've got a handful of animals from the Duzis, sweetheart, great guy, extremely knowledgeable, working with a lot of very specific localities of rat snakes. So now moving further down that rabbit hole, I feel like it wouldn't be fair unless, how am I going to say a black rat and a yellow rat and an Everglades rat and all these animals are the same thing? Because they're not. And so now, and there's been a little bit of less. Again, this is one of my own little mental strains. A little less pressure on me to try to get every single one, though I do know that over time I do have the room, and I do want to eventually experience all the different ones. I think right now, as far as North American rat snakes go, I have both Bogertrophus, and I have two localities of Rosalie, which is the Baja rat. Sorry, and then one locality of Transpecos rats, and then obviously Western green rat snakes are an animal that not a lot of people work with. There's reasons for that. They have a lot of. I did a lot of research on them, kind of find out why they weren't very popular in the hobby. And there's some good reasons. They are a more sensitive animal. The Baja rats kind of follow along that in some avenues. I think one of the things about the Baja rats, a lot of people were having wild caught ones, and they just don't do well. Kind of like back in the day with Asian colubrids. Remember, nobody wanted mandarin rats, nobody wanted cockeye, nobody wanted any of the beauty snakes. Remember, these were animals that could not be established. These are animals that couldn't do well. But now we're finding out actually these are some of the easiest ones to take care of. I'd love to. What is it? Oreocryptophis, that whole genus. I'd love to kind of mess with some of those. But that's a whole nother thing to mess with. But anyways, the Baja rats. I think if you get good, solid captive bred animals. From somebody that's done their due diligence to establish them. You manage a couple of small parameters on them. They're pretty bulletproof. Mine are every time eaters, shed perfect. You do want them dry. You do want them a little cooler. I can't speak with too much confidence in years of work with them, but over the time that I have had them, they really are. And man, a little bit of a tangent. The Bogertrophus genus, the Subocularis and the Rosalie, people really need to spend a little bit more time with those animals. They really
Transpecos rat snakes for those who don't.
Oh, sorry, yeah. So Transpecos rat snakes and Baja rat snakes are very different. They do things a little differently. They're a little more intelligent. You can see it. They learn things a little bit. It's without considering these animals too intelligent. The ideology that the Drymarchon genus is like this crazy intelligent species. To some extent, maybe they are in comparison to these other animals. But working with these, they really do things a little bit different compared to like a lot of your Pantherophis.
So are they a bit more visual and a bit more active?
Yes, I actually would say they're less active. You find your your rat snakes are always kind of squirming around, kind of rubbing all over the place, climbing up. The Trans-Pecos and the Bajas, I feel, are a little less active, but they're definitely more visual. When you open a tub, or maybe, I don't know necessarily how those would do in display enclosures. Those I'm kind of trying to stick to the guns of what other people did. They snap to it. When you've got food, they know it. When you don't have food, that's kind of one of the neatest things that I've noticed about them is when you don't have food, you don't have maybe tongs or whatever you're feeding them off of. It's almost like they know. Whereas like maybe my yellow rats or my gray rats or some of those guys, if I go in, they just think I have food. That's what I'm there for. Even some of my closer to wild caught, not necessarily wild caught, but my lesser domesticated corn snakes. Some of them are like that. They just automatically assume it. You got food. That's why you open that tub. The Trans-Pecos will kind of peek out and kind of know what's going on, and they'll see you, and they're not coming out to get pet or anything. They're not like that. I don't think I've ever seen that attitude in a snake. But your Baja rats are kind of similar in the sense of they kind of just one little click extra. It's kind of neat. It's kind of neat.
Yeah, and I was always impressed even by just a corn snake. Some individuals I can have a mouse and I could have my regular hand and able to differentiate.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Now other ones not so much, but
a lot of people discredit. I think your Pitiophis. A lot of people, oh man, they have this huge feeding response. They just freak out whenever you got food. And I'm like, man, I can open up my snakes on feeding day, have rats right next to me, and they won't touch my hand. But they know that if I have tongs, I got food. Or some of them I feed on plates. I don't know. That's a little pro tip right there. If anybody has a bunch of snakes, get yourself these little Dixie paper plates. Cut them in half, cut them in triangles for smaller species. But you don't have to tease feed everything. You can kind of just stick it in there and let it do its thing. I don't know. Works.
Yeah, I'm a drop and run with the Pitiophis. I have one that will come out on tongs and he'll he'll just grab it and then retreat back real quick. But the other two get either too riled up or too weird. So I just plop it on top of the hide and slam it closed. See you later.
It's a thing. Beauty snakes, or at least in my experience, again, I'm relating everything I have only to my own personal experiences. My beauty snakes, if you tried to tease feed them or something, they will lose it. They absolutely just lose it. They try and murder you. But if you just leave it in there, they'll or especially if you have like a little spot where you normally feed them, they kind of just associate with that. But yeah, Pitiophis do that really cool snap pullback thing, which you got to assimilate with pulling it down a hole and pinning it. Which is kind of neat. Certain species don't necessarily do that. Some of them actually wrap and constrict. Some of them don't. Some of them just kind of eat it. My bull snakes, I don't know if they're just lazy. Well, they're definitely not lazy, but they just gobble down whatever you give them, and they're ready for another rat or whatever. They don't really care. They're eating machines, man. Bull snakes are. Whew. Yeah,
so do you get up? You get up to like medium rats or on adults?
So where I'm at on my adult bulls is small rats is kind of where I want to stop, but that doesn't mean they're not going to get too small rats. I've seen a Pitiophis poop out an ear, so I know that they're digesting these animals so quick. It blows my mind. You feed these things. If I fed these things today, they'd be pooping tomorrow or the next day. It's so, their metabolism is so fast that I am a big fan, and I even do this with all my rat snakes, corn snakes, everything. I'm a big fan of smaller meals. Just maybe two food items. Maybe you're working on a female. If I wanted to get a female that just came out of brumation or something out to side, start getting some weight on her. Maybe 3 food items. Maybe you give them 3 mice instead of a rat. There's thought to the diets on these animals. I've done chickens, dude. Oh man, they love chicks. Almost every Pitiophis I have will eat chicks.
Really?
Quail. I haven't tried fish yet. Mostly because I do have a family and I do love them, and I heard their poo-poo smells something special when you do fish.
It smells pretty bad to begin with, so it can only get worse, I guess.
I'm very glad that I really enjoy working with these animals because I clean a lot of snake poop, man. It's the Pitiophis especially, and I know some of these people, I've got, I have a handful of these animals in comparison to some of these people that have just hundreds of them. I can't imagine. I cannot have a snake with a poop in its enclosure for a day. It would freak me out. I gotta clean it. Everything has to be clean. Everything has to be spottless. I wear gloves. I mean, this is part of my own OCD, which kind of assimilates through other things. Maybe this collection mentality. All these mentalities have thoughts with that. But yeah, so varying food items is great. I do want to try the fish, but I just haven't yet. But yeah, I'm a big fan of anyways, multiple smaller food items above one larger. I mean, I'm sure, man. I think my bull snake can take bigger than a medium rat. I don't know. I wouldn't want to push it. I don't think it would be indicative for me to do anything like that.
So are you, as far as when you're taking the females out of brumation, are you hitting them a lot more with food than you typically would?
Yeah, absolutely. So if my brumation is going to last somewhere in that 10 to 12 week range, maybe we would possibly be able to do like an 8 to 10 week range. I overanalyze this. I've talked to some good friends and people that have been doing this for a long time, and I'm one of those people that also steps up temperatures, which I know to some extent you don't really have to do. To me, it assimilates. We're not doing anything like nature. I'm putting these guys down in like early October because I can, because like I said, it's a wine fridge. These things don't go to Napa Valley and get thrown in with some Cabernet or whatever, or Riesling. I'm sorry, it wasn't a white wine. Anybody out there listening?
I don't know what comes from where, but
yeah, but I'm cooling them. Before I cool them, I'm making sure they're completely void of any food, any meals, especially with the Pitiophis. They just keep going. It's almost like you think they're done pooping, and then they keep pooping some more. And I'm sure you've seen that in similarity with your Louisiana pines. Then I'll cool them down to like room temperature, or put them in. I have a closet it's kind of cool. I got a closet that gets really hot during the summer, or really cool during the winter, or when temperatures drop at all, or even day cycles. So I'll bring them down to that 60, 68 range, 70, 72 degrees, somewhere around there, before I start cooling them. Bring them back up, or as they start warming up. I won't offer them not food meals. I won't offer them any meals until they're actually back on heat. And then it'll be small meals every 3 days, every 4 days. You're not hurting a 6-foot snake by giving it a small mouse. It's what it eating in the wild. Take your time. Don't risk anything. You don't want any stress added on these animals. Their intestines are completely emptied. Again, I'm not a scientist. I don't know exactly what's going on, but you don't want to just overload them, shock their system. Maybe one thing I did as I was warming mine back up once they got back on heat is I was changing the water a lot more. They start drinking a lot more. Start giving them more fresh water. A lot of these animals, we'll see them in the wild. You can go out and find bull snakes right now. The males are starting to look for females, and you'll see them. They're usually going towards a water source, not necessarily a food source. You'll find them going towards, like, here we have the Oso Creek, which is a small creek, but it's a decent size. It's not a river, but it does flow through our Nueces Bay, and you'll find them heading towards that creek. The creek kind of goes up through and even heads over towards the western part, kind of San Antonio area. Try to match that. Give them fresh water. Start giving them small meals, and then I did pair up some of my Pitiophis before seeing a post brumation shed. Corn snakes, that's pretty a cataloged thing. I kind of know corn snakes work has been written in so many wonderful books. You wait for that post brumation shed, start pairing them up with the Pitiophis. I felt like they took a lot longer to hit that post brumation shed, but also I didn't see any action with mine. So just recently, all of mine shed within the last 2 or 3 weeks, about 3 weeks ago. And so I've been pairing them up, and it looks like the San Diegos might do their thing. The bull snakes might not. All of these things that I'm talking about, I did not do with the bull snakes. I hadn't planned on breeding them this year, and I'm fine. If they don't go, that's it's okay.
How have you found pairing to be as far as the gophers go? Has it been pretty straightforward like it would with corn snakes? Do they go right for it, or do you keep them together?
My corn snakes were real about it. They went straight to it, hammered right into it. My Eastern Kings, it was 2 boys, but man, they were trying their hardest. The gophers did nothing. They absolutely ignored each other. And then the male shed right off the bat. I didn't pair them as often as maybe you might with corn snakes every once a week. Or I was like, I'll put them in for 2 days. These snakes are pretty tame, and pull them out, put them back in, after feeding. But now that the female, she shed about 2 weeks ago. He is really excited about it. She is not. So, and I've had her, I've had her probably the longest out of any of them. She's a little over 4 years old, and the male's a little over 3. So those are my daughter's favorites too. That snow cone and sunshine.
But that's not a bad sign as far as if she's not producing any pheromones, the male seems won't mess with her at all. So it's like she must be doing something. And sometimes I see that like sometimes they warm up over the weeks. Like they're not going near each other, and then you put them together 4 days later, and then he's kind of interested, but she's not. And then give it another week, and then all of a sudden, she's more. She'll basically let him have his way at the at the end. And that's so it's kind of like a scale.
And it's I also feel and a lot of these are new breeders. I've got a little female going into shed right now, a prelay, a little anery, het for everything, corn snake, and she paired up with that same JMG male, and she just went later, and I didn't even try pairing her up until after that first shed. She's smaller. She was just over 300 grams. Her prelay, if she goes here soon, it'll be about a 350 gram prelay shed. She's still aggressively eating those, so I'm not really overly worried about it. But they don't all go at the same time, and that's another kind of warning to a lot of people out there. Excuse me, sorry. You get too far ahead of yourself, and some people might want everything to happen quickly, and I want this breeding's gonna happen right now. It's not. Take your time. Sometimes females don't go till 2 or 3 sheds. Sometimes it just doesn't happen. Sometimes the males aren't ready. Sometimes the females aren't ready. Take your best care of them. Let's go on to the next season and see what happens. Don't ever be afraid to not pair something up. Don't give it an extra year. What's the harm in that? Like I said, I held a snake in my hands that I've had for a long time that I cared about, and it died in my hands. I mean, right? What do you? Who else's fault is that other than mine? Because I decided to breed it. It was a perfectly healthy animal. So we got to kind of keep that in mind as we're going into this. It's a full adventure. You got to have the ups and downs.
Yeah, I mean, even in order to get the prospect, I guess, of new life, you have to be willing to risk, the life of the mother in a way.
Absolutely.
Or if you're talking about king snakes, the life of any of the involved.
Yeah. I mean, putting them 2 boys together, if anything, it was that is a I've heard of male combat in like Morelia, which sounds really cool. But I don't think either one was going to eat each other. I think they're just right. Figure it out. Man, you kind of knew about a minute into it. These guys aren't here to tango. They're here for the full-on party. They are ready to go. They are going to eat each other. I am going to have 1 snake left. So
the other day I paired king snakes, and I was like, oh, he's sniffing her. He's interested. He just bit her tail. Like, fuck.
Oh man.
And then I was like, oh, well, this clearly isn't going to work.
Did they end up pairing up?
No, he's full food. I'm not even gonna mess with him. He's just a savage. I've been feeding him corn snakes too long, I feel.
Oh,
I don't know. He's just
what
like snake oriented.
what species?
Mexican black king snake.
Oh yeah, yeah. They kind of ride along that same chain as the Eastern Kings and that aggressiveness. I've heard Florida Kings can be pretty aggressive too. You worked with those before.
Yeah, honestly, more intense than like an MBK because they're just super fast, and when they wrap everything completely. So like if you have a rat, they'll grab it by the head and then wrap their body around the whole rat and squeeze every inch of that animal to death. So so it's fun when they do that to the female. You got it, which I had to do last year, but that's been my experience with king. I have bad timing, I think, because these were all like my first year breeding all of these king species. Last year was my first year for Florida, and then I had them eat each other or try to eat each other. But it's like you want to. I think that's just because I didn't have the timing down.
Yeah.
So now after that post brumation shed, maybe I'll wait those extra couple weeks to make sure they're ready to go. It doesn't seem like at least my individuals were ready to go right after that shed. But with corn snakes, I'm like, try them, because what could go wrong? And some of them go early, and then some of them will still wait. But there's no harm in trying the male with the female. In king snakes, there is.
and so with me, I leave a lot of things like overnight. I'm like, all right, man, you guys are gonna hang out overnight. And a lot of times I only saw a couple locks from my corn snakes, and so there is a comfort level with that too, though. Like it's still nerve wracking every time I have stuff paired up. I'm just like, is this gonna be it? Like I wish I should just pull these guys out so you can see these San Diego Gophers. Female's like a foot bigger than the male. And it's like, is she gonna not do that? And just like, there's only gonna be one little gopher snake in there. And I mean, it's you take that risk. You've made that decision. You put that pair together. You've taken the responsibility, the actions, whatever those animals are, no matter what.
Yeah, and how is your experience as far as having geckos, which can have males being pretty aggressive, and even Pituophis, I think they some species will bite the neck too, right? Kind of like would a gecko.
Yeah. I've seen these super aggressive bull snakes where they absolutely just latch onto the back of the neck of the females, and I'm like, maybe I have two girls because mine are just cuddled up in the hide box. So here's one thing, and now I'll start talking a little bit about the breeding on the geckos. I give all of my animals maybe like the next size up tub than they need, right? So maybe a San Diego Gopher is going to be good in like, I'm speaking of vision tubs. It'd be fine in like a V35. I've got mine at V70s. Maybe a big bull snake is going to be good in a V70. I'm going to try and push them into like V180s. I like them to be able to move. I like them to have a gradient. I like them to be able to, have a hot spot that's hot and a cool spot that's cool, even though that hot spot might not be that hot. So, gargoyle geckos are surprisingly aggressive. As far as the breeding goes, the males are more aggressive in the sense of like biting necks and such. They are only trying to do one thing. A lot of times the females are trying to either defend territory or kind of keep the males off of them. The females will tear the males up with the guards, or females will fight each other. I've heard stories of torn off legs and limbs and toes. I've had a few get it. I don't know what it is. They go for the tails. Gargoyle geckos, after they drop their tails, will actually regrow them, which is kind of cool. So that you do see aggression in any animal. I highly suggest anybody that's breeding any of these animals, if you start seeing aggression like that, pull them apart. Subtract one of the variables from that equation. Give them a week off. Give that male 24 hours off. Give that female, put her in timeout for a week or something. It's not as long as your parameters are met in your care, you're going to be able to put them back together. They're going to pair. They're going to do their thing, or they might not. They might not breed, and maybe that's just that's the end of your success with that species. But that doesn't mean you can't keep that species, because if you have them and they're thriving, you've already succeeded. You didn't have to check the breeding off the list, even though that may be your goal, and that's also also good. But yeah, so a lot of your if I would go back to a lot of the terrestrial geckos, they're not too aggressive with breeding. The issue I have found with them, and again, it's a reason to unpair them for a period of time, is they'll overbreed. I had a pair of my Trotis give me 12 clutches in 1 year, and that was with 2 months off, and that's just too much. It's almost they retain sperm. There's nothing you can really do about it. But my first year breeding them, the female just constantly was laying eggs like every 20 days or something. I couldn't even believe that it was that much. I got Leeches moving around because the sun went down, and I'm like, "What is that?" But yeah, so all these species, it's a lot of people like to say that own something for a year or maintain something for a year before you start trying to breed it. I think it's a really good idea. Now you may find yourself wheelhousing with certain colubrids. If I got a corn snake in my collection right now after it passed through my quarantine parameters, I wouldn't have a problem trying to pair it up. Or maybe if it was before brumation, and maybe I wanted to do things my specific way. Or if I had a bull snake come in, but I've kept that species. I know what to look for. I know what to deal with. And there's a lot of learning I still have to do with so many different species, and that's part of the fun. It is learning each parameter to get each one to click and synchronize and make it work. And that's kind of the adventure with the collection.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's always new things to figure out, and little pains in the ass as animals will. They're all different, so you always get new challenges.
Yeah, they definitely have certain things about them. And then there's also the other thing. You probably, if you want to breed animals, somebody wants to breed snakes, somebody wants to breed, learn how to sex your animals, because you're going to end up with two males trying to eat each other, and it's not going to be the most fun in the world. That's kind of, I think that's like the pro tip, because you can pop a baby, you need to be able to probe an adult. Do that next level of research and learn how to do it. Find a mentor, find somebody that's going to be able to help you. We can all jump into this. I can buy a pair of corn snakes on whatever venue you want to, and pair them up and try and go that way. And how much benefit have I done to the community or those animals themselves without learning it on my own?
And I think that there's a lot. I actually got distracted by the chat. I forgot what the hell I was going to say.
Oh yeah, I see the chat going, and I'm just like, man, I cannot read that at all.
They're talking about like the rodent industry and everything that's going on with the with what's going to happen, I guess, in our economy as reptile keepers and breeders and our industry.
What's going to happen? Can you tell me?
It's so hard to gauge whether the things that are going on are going to make animals extremely cheap or more expensive, easier to get, harder to get. Are people not going to want animals at all?
It's a possibility. There's some of the biggest shows in the world are not going to happen this year. That's it. It's brass tacks of it. Some people only sell their animals at those shows. We as hobbyists need to prepare for that. And I think we should do a lot of work planning. Anybody out there that's breeding snakes, and Joe, I know you're probably thinking about this too. Do you got to pair up everything this year? Really, really think and analyze and quantify what you're doing. I have some of the most beautiful yellow producing gargoyles in the world, and I broke them up this whole season. They're going to be broken up, and I just don't need to. I don't need to produce, and I'll probably be pulling males out of a couple of these because I don't think this year is going to be that stellar year of what I've already got. I hold back about 20. I'd like to say I hold back about 20 animals a year, and through those I'll probably narrow that down to one or two. But as those grow, but at the same time, I'll probably produce 60 to 100 gargoyles this year. If I stuck with my current breeding trios, or this one over here has 4.
And it should be interesting to see how people adjust from doing shows and selling mostly in person, and those people who kind of swear against, the online presence and stuff like that. So it should be interesting to see how everyone tries to sell this year and everything that's going on.
There's some of the biggest, best breeders out there don't sell online, and they're going to have to kind of figure that out. I wish we had a little bit more cohesive venue to do it. There's obviously, there's a lot of different websites. Not going to promote any of them. Facebook, whatever the heck. At first, it seemed like they didn't want animal sales. Now it seems okay if you don't put certain things in a title. I don't know. If as a community, if we can come to some generalized idea, this is the place we're going to do. That would help people, but it looks like it's really been narrowed down to about 3. So I don't know. Me, 99% of my that's not true. Probably 90% of my sales that I've ever done have been online. And I want to talk to people. If anybody ever hits me up, I'm like, just call me. Some of the best friends I've made in this hobby have either been selling or buying reptiles. I've met so many people just through the online capability that we have through social media. It's awesome. That is that next generation. There is maybe a 10 or 15 year span between 2000. When was the ball python boom? Let's call it 2003 to 2005. Add 15 years onto that. And look at a couple years ago, man, everything's gone online. Whereas back then it was all it shows. It was Reptiles magazine. Here's the new morph. Here's the, now everybody's got vlogs and social media, and so that's where we're gonna have to be selling. Maybe that's the show now. Maybe we need to have online shows. Maybe we need to see more auctions. Maybe we need to try to do a little bit more benefit for charity or conservation of these animals. That's a beautiful thing. We can all get together as a community. You don't have to be in person to have your presence shown. You can have that emotion with somebody through a message, through a venue like this. Like I said before, what you guys, NPR, the Herpetoculture podcast guys, and so many others. There's so many other good podcasts. What this group of people is doing now. It is kind of feels like that next generation, though it has been going on for many years now. That flower is kind of flourishing. These seeds that were set through NPR and like Gecko Nation Radio and what was it, Snake Room. There was an old podcast that was just awesome.
There was a reptile apartment. There was, and then Reptile Radio was a big one.
Reptile Radio, that's what it was. That was. Yeah, and these seeds were planted by some of our the people we look up to, some of our mentors. But now we're kind of taking that and flourishing. And look how much more knowledge you can put into your brain than you could have 15, 20 years ago. Little me running around flipping logs, wanting to know about garter snakes, I couldn't hop online and read an article. I had to go try to find a book or my Audubon Society manual, and so now we have this really neat presence of ourselves. But at the same time, you need to be cordial and promote yourself and handle yourself as you would have in person. There's a lot of tough guys out there, a lot of cool cats. You know what I mean? Cool cats, kittens, if you might. That really push their ideals a little too far, maybe a little too hard. And now us as this new generation, we're really like a third generation herpetoculturists, right? Like, you had your OG guys back in the 70s, 80s, really creating what the hobby was. And then you had these guys that kind of carried us through the 90s and maybe early 2000s, that your big names in the hobby that generated the popularity of some of these animals. Well, now it's in the hands of us. And I won't even say young guys, because some of the people aren't too young. it's on our shoulders to carry it forward, and so now we've got to handle ourselves in the appropriate manner.
Yeah, I think it's funny seeing like it's almost a changing of the guard every once in a while, where it's like now I feel like it's so media driven. Although I guess it was like back when Ralph Davis had blogs and stuff like that he was doing. He was like the first to do that, and then Reptile Radio, and then now it's like, you know, the big guys in the industry have spurred off of like YouTube channels and stuff like that. It really doesn't have anything to do with breeding animals, even though a lot of them are great at breeding animals, but it's mostly about their social media presence.
Sure. Yeah. And their, whatever it is of their mentalities or ideals and however they're able to push that on other people. And that's, I'll kind of harken back on one of the things I said earlier. It's so important to absorb as much of that as you can from as many different venues as you can. But until you have determined and experienced for yourself, you got to test drive that car. You got to learn the inner workings of how it goes. You can't have an experience with something through somebody else. It is not possible. You can learn parameters. You can learn safety guidelines. We can learn where we need to be and within what walls we need to work, right? But you can't actually generate your own ideals to therefore push onto somebody else to experience yourself. I can't tell you how to keep a blue tongue skink. I mean, I may or may not have had one allegedly back in the day, but I can't read an article online or watch a YouTube video and then turn around and tell somebody this is how you need to keep this animal. I can't fairly do that. So that's part of that self-building as a community.
Yeah, and I think I guess it can be hard to filter out the legitimacy of someone, especially for the younger kids getting into it. But I think at the end of the day, it all works out the way you learn your lessons and stuff like that, and you do more research, and you really can't just take it off of one source.
Sure, yeah. It's up to you to prove to yourself, and if you just want to be a kind of a lemming and follow whatever this one guy says because he has a million followers on YouTube, and that's your prerogative, and I can't tell you that you've done it wrong, but do yourself the favor of expanding that knowledge, and you're only gonna excel from there.
100%.
Yeah.
So, Kris, what do you see as the future of Badlands herpetoculture? What is going on?
So I hope to keep and maintain a collection of animals that maybe or may not I get to breed and produce and flourish into the economy or the hobby. But more than anything, I'm going to learn about all these animals. I'm learning all the ins and outs. I'm going to learn all the little idiosyncrasies. I want to specifically the Pitchophis, the all of them. Wow. The North American rat snakes. I want to get as many Baja rat snakes as I can. I want to get as many Western green rat snakes as I can. I want to learn about these animals. I want to share that knowledge with other people. I have Mexican hognose snakes, another species that's just not kept enough in the hobby. They're a little difficult to get started, but once they start going, they're great. I want to do my due diligence to learn about all these animals and all these different species of geckos, all these different lines and lineages of these animals, and share that not only with the community but with anybody interested. And I'd like to, along the lines, make a little money, be all right. Sell a few of these animals. I plan on working with corn snakes for a long time. Corn snakes are one of my original loves. They will always be one of my loves. Pitchophis, plan on working with them for a long time. Anybody interested in gargoyles, please let me know. I work with multiple lines of great animals. Don't always have lineage information on them. Some you just buy out of a deli cup at a show, and that's that one that just gets you going. But I think that's just the plan is just enjoy the hell out of it, even if it all shuts down tomorrow. The coronavirus takes us all out, and there's no internet. I'm still going to keep these snakes. I'm still going to be scooping poop on Thursday. It's going to happen. I'm gonna feed. I'm going to be feeding these animals. God, dude, my leeches are going. I'm not gonna lie, my little leeches are going batshit crazy.
Dude, can you take Shrek out? Is that his name?
Oh yeah, let me grab Shrek. Hold on.
Yeah, take him out. So I have never kept Lychees. I have kept crested geckos. It's the closest thing I've ever had to a Lychee, but I've always been fascinated about how huge they are and how weird and wrinkly and old man looking they can be. And just I've seen so many awesome handleable animals, but I've heard also some interesting stories about their temperaments as well.
Yeah. So, oh my God, I don't know how to do this. It's opposite. So this is Shrek. He's chirping right now, which is kind of cool. He's a pretty good sized animal. He's about 300 grams. I got kind of ogre sized hands, so it doesn't just look as big as I have like improportionately large hands, but he's about as long as my forearm. God damn, webcams are hard. But yeah, he's kind of a sweetheart. Sometimes he's kind of not about it. He's chirping right now, if y'all can hear that. You can see a little bit of. Still, he has a little. Oh,
he's got.
That's about as graceful as they get. You can see a little chunk still healing off of his jowls right there, and then right here he's one of his little toes is missing, right there. He's missing that little toe, but yeah, no, he's cool. Leeches are great. They have this neat little toe on the tip of their tail, and they're.
And they randomly jump out of your hand.
Yeah, that's like the best they got, dude. That's as far as they can go. They're just a little floop. They're really neat though, and can y'all hear that? Can you hear that chirp?
Yeah, that's so weird. That's coming from a gecko.
Yeah, like this big ass. There's a little tongue. Yeah, this big ass.
Is that a defense thing or is it a mating?
No, it's definitely not mating. Though he does probably hear the female and male over here wrestling around. I thought that it was a defense thing for a long time, but I've been corrected a few times by other people that they say it's a communication thing. But he doesn't have a mate, and I don't plan on him having another mate for a while. He's kind of just like a dude. But yeah, they're crazy. They're so big. You know, they really in the wild. They're so bad at so many things. I'm gonna put them up real quick. I'll grab a gargoyle out real quick.
Yeah, so I don't know if people could see, but he was basically trying to jump and failing to jump, and when he did jump, he would just splat on the table, very unathletically, if that is a word. But they're so good at camouflage. Their camouflage is perfect if you're on cork bark or something. So I assume it's not their athleticism that allows them to maintain themselves in the wild. And then I believe just like the other geckos. Lychees will also they'll eat like fruits that are decaying and stuff, right? Will they eat that just as a crested or gargoyle would?
Yeah. So my Lychees are completely 110% from babies to adults, only fed gecko mixes. So they only it's hard to do. So my Lychees only eat gecko diets. The only other thing I feed them is if I have a gecko that fails to hatch or doesn't make it all the way, I'll feed them baby geckos. Female gargoyles. So these are adult female gargs, and they're really kind of. I literally don't know how webcams work. It's a mystical science in which I have not derived. This little girl's from South Tex Geck. She's part of my bacon line group, and this girl right here is from Rack House, and she's gorgeous. So these guys also are 100% on crested gecko diet or gecko diets, and they will eat the females of these guys will eat pinkies. I feed them frozen thawed pinkies dipped in calcium. I like to use. Well, I'm not gonna promote a brand, but if anybody's interested, PM me. I'll let you know what I use. But I'll dip the pinkies in calcium after they lay eggs. It kind of helps them catch back up. They lose a little bit of weight. They crash a little bit. They have pretty big eggs. But man, they make such good pets. They're so easy to take care of. Mine, I keep it room temperature. Hottest they ever see is 80. They'll get down into 68, 70 degrees during the winter. They kind of just chill and relax. They have a pretty rowdy bite, which is kind of cool. But yeah, a bunch of different lineages. This is one of the things I wanted to kind of showcase is different kinds of reds. I know she's kind of in the middle of firing down, so her kind of depth of her color isn't being shown. A really dark red, and then you can kind of have an animal like this girl who has a really pretty light red.
And what's the most desired in the hobby typically?
Your big, thick, saturated red stripes. If you ever, if you Google South Texas Gex bacon, you'll kind of see this thing. He's not only red on his back, it's on his sides, on his face. It's crazy. It's neat because these animals, though they may not be showing the most red that an animal could show, they also they can produce that. So that's kind of neat. I think that the most beautiful of all of these animals is going to be these reds. They're just, man, it's so neat to see that. I mean, that's an animal. You know what I mean? It's not a morph. that's a gecko, dude. Like, what?
And can you tell from babies? I mean, what's going to be the most red?
Yeah, absolutely. They do go through a bit of an onogenic change, and I can grab a baby real quick, show you kind of some of the different colorations. You can tell kind of right off the bat if you have raised them. It's kind of hard sometimes. You got to like convince people that they're going to be really pretty because they do go through quite a bit of a change. These reds, especially the reds on the outside here, they will start out very yellow and orange. This one's going to jump. You gonna jump? They suck so bad at jumping. Here, let me grab a little bit smaller one.
Yeah, I love how all those the New Caledonia geckos, the crested geckos, the gargs, and the Leeches and different geckos like that. I just lump those all together, but they just randomly jump and randomly do things. I think I love holding them because they feel so unique, but then again, like it's always weird when they just randomly jump.
So you see, this guy's got a lot more orange.
Oh, damn. That is like, at least on camera, it's showing up super vivid.
Yeah, he's real orange. That orange will eventually be that deep red color.
Ah. So they go through like this really interesting like teenage phase.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take that one step further. Oh, he's jumping. I got him. Oh, he jumped. I got him.
And that's something that I see even in like corn snakes. When you hit about 1 year to 2 years, you can get some really nice looking animals and some things that look a little bit different than say what it looked like as a baby, as far as it will get a lot brighter and look a lot nicer. That's kind of the fun thing about having animals that do onogenic color changes.
So I'm sorry, I cannot hear you if you were talking when I do.
No, I'm just filling the space in between you getting animals, so it's not permanent.
You're all right. One more. Sorry.
I'm just talking while you play around and find some geckos. But yeah, I've always found these guys super fascinating, and I think it's super cool that so many people now are reproducing them and working with all different types of cool colors and morphs. And are there any like true morphs in gargoyle geckos?
Yes. So you have the reticulated and the striped, and I'm not entirely sure how the generations of reticulated to striped work. I do know that it takes reticulateds. Reticulateds are like, it's kind of like Thera. You know how there's different phases, but you can have like a milk snake phase and a buckskin phase in a similar clutch.
Mm-hmm.
You can have reticulateds and stripes in the same clutch of 2 eggs. But those two are different. And then you can have phantom eye. And phantom eye is not a recessive. It's like a kind of like a codominant. A phantom eye to a normal eye will produce phantom eyes 25% of the time, but it takes like 2 years to be able to see them. So this little guy, see how yellow he is?
Yeah.
That is a newborn bacon line.
So do you see that getting more yellow or getting more red?
That will get completely red. There'll be no yellow left. So all the yellow on its tail, all the yellow on its sides, all the yellow on its head, even the yellow here on the side on this little guy and on his cheek, all that's going to be red.
Whoa, he has a weird little spot, orange spot on his cheek.
Yeah, that'll be completely red.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And so what do the yellow line animals look like in comparison to that?
So a yellow animal as a baby. So yellow is a weird thing with gargoyles. If a baby gargoyle shows a lot of yellow, there's a really good chance they have a higher propensity to end up red. A lot of young yellows end up red. Now, if you have an animal that doesn't have a lot of color on it, or maybe has some white stripes, they may end up with yellow stripes. The colors have to mature. Your initial spinal colors usually stay the same. Like, see how they have like the red on his back, but then it has the yellow. That yellow is going to turn red. But yellow animals, essentially, there's a big controversy going on in like the gargoyle gecko world about yellow animals. Yellow animals essentially need to come from yellow parents. You need to be able to show me that they had yellow parents. It just there's not a lot of true yellows in adult gargoyles.
So basically, you know what you're looking at. I would not be able to tell.
It takes a little bit of time. You could, and man, the polygenics on these animals is so crazy. You can have something that's totally normal, and then you can have a clutch mate that's just bombastic, absolutely just crazy, blowing out of the water colors. You can have one of these animals hatch from two completely just brown parents. They all carry the genetics for these colors. It's whether they're going to show them or not. It's the other animal that is similar to that is the Pityophis depijani. These things look like crap when they're born. You cannot decide what they're going to look like as adults or close to adults. And there's so much variation from them. You have pure line animals, different localities, and they just blow it out of the water. It's totally different looks.
Yeah, it's always interesting to see to how people pick their holdbacks and stuff like that, and it's huge as far as there's a reason why people who have the nicest animals have been hatching them out the longest at the same time, so
it takes experience. My first year breeding, like what I would say higher end gargoyles, I sold an animal that I have seen it now. I should have never sold. No reason I should have got rid of that animal. And man, if you look at baby pictures, it just doesn't look like it's going to be that. Oh, now I hold them. I hold anything that's a really, really, really higher end animal. I'm going to hold back for at least 6 months until I holding back a gecko for 6 months that only eats fruit paste is a lot easier to make for 6 months. That has to be fed a pinky, sometimes multiple times a week. There's a big difference. I really feel like, corn snakes go through a huge change too. You got animals that, I don't know, like my JMG snow or JMG coral snow super red thing. Like he didn't look at all like what he looks like when he was little, and now he's just the most pink animal there is. It's crazy.
Yeah, and that's something that I guess you can pick the most pink to the beginning, but if you don't know, I mean, you get some morphs where they just gain a color, or like I can kind of get an idea where yellow is going to come in for some animals. Give it like 6 months or something.
Yeah.
But if someone's really trying to breed something for like the least yellow on a white snow or something, that's going to be hard.
It's like the gargoyles. Like I know from looking at them over years and years and years where the little markers are that this is going to be a just crazy blown out reds right here, and without it's that learning that animal. You gotta learn that species. You gotta learn how to work with it. You gotta. Man, it takes a long time. You gotta. And you know what? Especially these animals that change a lot from babies, you're going to enjoy every minute of it. You really are. There are a few animals that don't change. Black pine snakes kind of stay the same. They get a little blacker. Bull snakes go through a pretty decent change. Some of the Pityophis don't. The Depijani just, it's crazy, man. The change. And I'm gonna grab him out. I gotta get him out. He's awesome.
Yeah, go for it. So a lot of these pine snakes, especially this animal, they really gain yellows and oranges at a pretty late stage, and some of them even get this weird like hypo-ish look to them. Super cool, but they can turn out to be really amazing animals.
These guys are so just
Oh, that animal's already beautiful.
yeah. When they're born, they're just brown turds. And dude, that orange, that is actually how orange he is. There's not like a light trick going on. I mean, and then they have this.
They get some type of weird like diffused patterny thing, and the coloration that goes along with that can almost be like grayish and bluish in a sense.
Yeah. I mean, look at that. Oh, they're a little wiggly, but look at that head. Look at that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's hard to beat. You can't, they're so, and yeah, they have that just super neat, broken up pattern. And then their tail gets down to like this super neat orange. And he's so if anybody's looking at Debbie John, I think these are probably the slowest growing Pituovis out there. This guy's over 2 years old. He's healthy. I don't want him to be fat or chubby. That's about where you're going to be. Look at see that the head just diffuses out.
Yeah, you lose all pattern.
So cool. So here, let me show you what a 2-year-old Nueces County bull snake whose parents were 8 foot long looks like. I gotta show this guy out. I'm sorry, I'm all like pumped up about it.
No, you're good. So there's a bunch of, especially in West Texas, I've seen some pictures of back in Bill Love. They had at that motel in Alpine, they had this bull snake. I mean, easy 8 foot, 9 foot animal, probably even bigger. It's like the bull snakes out there can get absolutely giant, and it's amazing to have a snake that's not an indigo and have it, be 9 feet long or something like that, like those West Texas animals can get.
So this snake is also about 2 years old.
Damn, it's like double the size almost.
Yeah, no, easily. And like I said, I don't want to keep any of my guys. Oh man, it's stupid. I did not ever work with webcams. I don't want to keep any of my guys fat. I don't want to see any chubby snakes. I don't want to see, I want to see nice, sharp bred loaves. He's over 5 foot. I'm 6 foot tall. So he's pretty, they're all a little squirmy. But this is an F1 bull snake. Everybody's kind of worried about him being fussy and sassy and bitey. And yeah, some of them end up like that. But man, you hold them, you work with them, you'll get something that's gonna be like this guy. That's, super neat peaches and tans and a low calorie. Look at that guy. Come on. Can't beat that.
Cool keeled scales.
Yeah.
A great face.
So you guys notice, look at the same light reflection on these keeled scales in comparison to that John eye that I just had out. It's totally different.
Yeah.
Totally different. So this guy's a little smaller than a female. I'm not gonna pull a female out because she is not as happy as he is. But that's about where you want a breeder male, about a little bit over 5 foot. They can get bigger than this, and he will, especially this locality. Somewhere in there. That's where, at least in my opinion, and then again, I'm not speaking with a massive level of intelligence. It's awesome when they're like big snakes. You can just kind of like put them back in.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I get really excited about these things. I really just enjoy having them, not only in my collection, but just in my life. Also being able to go out and find them in the wild. It's a blast.
Yeah, I appreciate your enthusiasm, your energy, and all the information you've given us. We're at 2 hours and 45 minutes about. So yeah, so this is the first time I've gone over in a long time because I've been so busy, but I felt like we had to, just because too much good info is getting out.
Yeah, sorry, I get pretty excited, man.
No, man, I enjoyed it. So thank you so much for spending time with us. And if anyone wants to reach out to you, where can they find you?
I'm on Facebook, Badlands Herpetoculture. And then Instagram, Badlands Herpetoculture. Probably post more on Instagram. Anybody interested in any species that I work with, PM me. Whether I'm knowledgeable on it or not, I'll let you know, and I'll let you know what I'm doing. Anybody interested in gargoyle geckos or any of the species I breed, I don't often post available animals. Usually it's just people interested kind of get with me, and I'll go from there. But other than that, Kris Painschab, look me up on Facebook too. Just message me on Facebook. Just bug me. I'm all about it. I mean, I'm excited to talk about any of this stuff. I could talk all night long, and I gotta get up at 5 a.m.
There you go. Well, thank you so much for hanging out. If you want to check out what I have going on, portcitypythons.com, Port City Pet on Instagram, Port City Pythons podcast on YouTube, and you've been listening to From the Ground Up podcast. Kris, thanks again, man.
Anytime, Joe. Appreciate everything you do.
And I will catch you guys next week. We did it.